Like I said, we will be all set to begin in a minute. And starting right on time, a warm welcome to all of you lovely ladies and the allies who've joined this special edition of the India Impact Communication Conclave Women's Day Special Online Edition. We're embarking on a journey for the next 4 hours that includes 5 sessions where panelists are sharing insights, followed by a bonus session, which is a networking session on Zoom for all the attendees from 4:45 to 5:25 p.m. The first part is on the link that you're currently on. The networking segment will be on bit.ly/IICC 2021 catch up, and catch up in all caps. So let me first acknowledge our associate partners, ATDB Communications, Scroll Mantra, and Commune, and highlight that all 3 associate partners are women-founded, women-owned PR firms based in NCR. ATDB Communications has Abhilasha and Kiran, Scroll Mantra has Neha Bajaj, and Commune has Ruby Sinha. We also acknowledge our supporting partners, PRCAI, WICCI, OneSource, IPRF, SCORE, PR Club, and Reputation Today. Once again, it's a pleasure and an honor to be curating this conversation and to be a part of this extremely exciting lineup of what we have in store today. So without further ado, let's jump right in and start with the first panel, which I have the honor to moderate. And this panel will be on scratching more than the surface of diversity, a look into where we stand as fellow professionals. And my fellow panelists are Chaya Arora, SAP India, Geetanjali Nehru, Max Life Insurance, Neha Bajaj, Scroll Mantra, Priya Badshah, Invesco, and Vasudha Jha, Mars Pet Care. Welcome to the conversation to all of you. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi,
Shreya.
Hi. Without further ado, let me jump right in and let me start. I see Chaya on my screen first, and I'll go in order from there on. Chaya, if you can share your thoughts on what you think and where you think we are in context of the topic itself. And if you can share your thoughts on that, and then we'll do a round robin and come back to my set of questions.
Okay, so thank you for having me on the panel, and it's an honor. My thoughts on the panel are this is again a discovery that we've had when we do such diversity and inclusion or Women's Day celebrations at workplace, or also amongst peers when we're having this conversation. So the broad outcome that I hear and I feel and I also believe is that empowerment, women being the weaker section is a past conversation. I don't think anyone on this panel, or also people who've joined us today, believe that we are any weaker or we are any, we are not equally empowered. I don't think so. But yes, there are sections of the societies which need the hand holding, and which is what we empowered women should be giving on to them. So I very strongly believe that there is a very big population who needs help, but then we are the privileged ones who've got all the kind of facilities, empowerment that we are experiencing today. And so yeah, I don't find the need to celebrate International Women's Day.
I absolutely agree with you. So on that note, Priya, I'll come over to you and switch to you and ask you about what do you think is the context that we're really going to dwell on later today in the conversation?
So hi everybody once again. Shreya, coming quickly to your question, I think all of us have spent now more than a decade in the industry. I've spent close to 2 decades, and definitely scratching the surface. What's the topic? What do we speak about? The privileged ones, like Chaya said, we have gone a little way ahead of scratching the surface, but at the same time, communications as an industry, as a fraternity, can take that pride that we don't have to worry about a ratio or stuff. But having said that, so that's the quantitative part. Having said that, the qualitative part, how do we empower? How do we make it a welcoming industry for ourselves, for our fraternity, is something, yes, I can say we are scratching the surface. The good news is there is more than enough awareness. I think it's now like, roll your sleeves, get onto it. And again, get onto it. It's not something where you start rolling initiatives and programs on Women's Day. It's about mindset, which I'll elaborate further, but it's about the mindset. And I think if over the course of the day, if we can, come up as a collective voice, how do we nail this? I think we'll meet the purpose of the day. Thanks.
Absolutely, Priya. And we'll come more to the whole context of the mindset shortly. Geetanjali, I'm going to quickly switch to you and ask you for your opening thoughts on where do you think we are and where do you think this whole scratching the surface needs to really go to?
Hi everybody, and Shreya, thanks for putting this forth. This question is very interesting, and to be honest, I've been thinking about it. It's such a loaded question, and sometimes I feel, when you're looking at, and I was speaking to somebody, let's say this morning as well, we concluded a D&I week, Priya, like you said, there are so many celebrations, etc. And then yesterday was, surprisingly, you wake up and my little daughter, who's 3 years old, we're wishing her Happy Women's Day or Girls' Day. And she's like, what are we talking about? And my son, who's 5 years old, says, Mama, what about a Happy Men's Day? When is that? And, you actually sit and think, is this about a day? Is this about, a year? Is this about, what is this really about, diversity? And for me, I think I am, again, one of those privileged few where I have managed to reach where I've reached and have had the right opportunities, also been able to take those up. But the rule of the average is not the same. It's definitely not the same. And I think it is very critical that professionals like us sit together, discuss, and also deliberate on some very critical steps that all of us need to take, whether it is mindset, culture, etc. And how do we need to change and move the ante from where it is today towards something else, as a country where we stand today. And I talk about the country more so because I think we have a huge scope for a move. So I feel this is a great opportunity. It's a very important one. And I think as PR professionals, we're so used to providing messaging, providing talking points, questions, and being right in most of those, like the leaders should talk about this. I would love to go beyond that in this discussion today. I would love to think what is really out here, what do we really mean, and what we're saying, how much of it is already being put into practice by each one of us in our spheres of influence.
Absolutely, that totally refers to the whole scratching beyond the surface, and I think going deeper within ourselves and looking at the ecosystems that we're part of. Vasudha, I'm going to come to you and ask you for your opening thoughts on where do you think we are, what is the scenario, what do you feel, what do you think, because all of those amalgamate into the larger story, really.
Thanks, Shreya. See, where I'm concerned, I personally believe that we've come a long way. And I personally do not believe in celebrating Women's Day or whatever, because I think every day is Women's Day or every day is any day that you want to celebrate. That's one part of it. So, but yes, what I do think is that it gives us an opportunity to look at topics which probably get overlooked on a regular basis, and something that we can bring our focus back into and then really talk about it and bring it back to the surface in case it's getting lost somewhere. When we think about diversity, okay, the way, again, Geetanjali said, let's not look at key messages, but I'm going back to a thought process which exists in my organization, Mars, which is very much, every organization is working towards diversity. But when we talk about diversity, we don't talk about it without inclusion. Okay. And when we mean inclusion is not, again, it's not one fancy kind of a term. It's just about including the differences. It's about really examining the differences, and it's more about acceptance. It's about really, and when we talk about it more today, I'll probably delve a little deeper into how our own unconscious biases create those differences, and therefore we need to to like it said that change the world, you have to start with ourselves. And I think that's where the journey of diversity totally begins. That's my 2 bit on it.
Absolutely. So I think there you go, looking at change from within us to change the system outside us is what Vasudha referred to. Neha, I'll come to you quickly and ask you about what do you think and where do you think we are at this current juncture on our various journeys and collectively?
Thank you so much, Shreya. Firstly, a very good afternoon to all of you, and thank you so much for having me on the panel. I think my peers have given some great insights on diversity, and I think I agree with most of them. And I think as an industry, we have a responsibility towards bridging the gap for our fellow professionals. We've definitely come a long way, but there's still a huge gap that needs to be filled. And I think diversity is definitely imperative, not just for social justice, but also for professional upliftment. I think, the market forces are now demanding a change that we need to create an environment where everyone feels valued, irrespective of their gender, marital situation, culture, or race for that matter. I think it is not only important to lay down a strategy for diversity hiring in the industry, but also to strategize the ways to manage it. I think which we will be discussing, in the course of the panel.
Absolutely. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's my panel sharing what they believe in the context of what we're discussing today. And with that, I come to my first question. And what I'll do is, Geetanjali, I'll start with you. And this question is the same for all of you, because it's, it's what you think about equity. What does equity mean to you? And are we really there yet? So Geetanjali, I'll start with you, and then, we'll go around the table and get everybody's thoughts. Yeah.
Of course. So what does equity mean to me? I think, Shreya, it means empowerment in one word. It just means empowerment. And I think at another level, if I was to scratch the surface of equity, I would love to be in a world where equity as a concept doesn't need to be spoken about because it's the skin of the game. It is in our DNA. It just exists. It's a natural. It's like we don't have to talk about the blood going through our veins because it's just there. So equity is just there. And that would be the ideal case scenario where no diverse, candidate, person, individual, child, whoever has to ever speak about it. So for me, equity is empowerment, development, being just, fair, all of those things. And I know everybody will agree. Are we there yet? No. I feel terrible about saying this, but no. But the silver lining is, I think over the last few years, we've really moved in that direction. I think the conscious and the deliberate attempt to make a difference when it comes to bringing equity into the folds of our workings, whether at home, in schools, whether it is in colleges, youth, millennials, or it is in organizations, at least the conversation's begun. And that's, I think, the awareness is half the battle won. Once we diagnose the problem, we know we will find a solution to the problem. That's what I would think, Shreya.
Absolutely. Diagnose the problem, acknowledge that there is a problem. By what the statistics say, it's going to take us 130 years to reach true equality, and none of us are perhaps going to be there when that happens. And that's the ground reality, Having said that, now let me move to Priya. Priya, I'll come to you and I'll ask you, what does equity mean to you? And where do you think we are?
Okay, Shreya, so completely agree what Neha has said, and just building on that, it has to be inherent. Right now, it's acquired. Inherent in the sense you don't really need to call out. It's there. It's like the air we breathe. The sun comes and the moon comes at their respective times. So it's just there. It's natural, like she said. So definitely we are not there. We are there in pockets. So there are individuals in individual capacity. There are organizations. There are forums. There are corporations, NGOs who have done a bit on that. So there are, and therefore, I mean, if we compare a decade back, at least there are pockets. So like I said earlier, I think there is time and again, there's a lot of stuff around awareness, but to actually, pick up the ball and let the ball rolling, look around, there's a lot of work to be done. So that's where I feel we are still miles away. But I really wish what you said that, it's 130 years. I think if I can have, lesser than 15, I think it just takes a really, really conscious effort. Just do it kind of a thing. I mean, here we speak about women power. We speak about, where there's a will, there's a way. There is no dearth of the financial support as initiatives, because a lot of corporations have, time and again voiced that, it's very much their agenda. So I really can't figure out personally what is left that we are not able to find. What's that piece of the puzzle we are not able to find? It's all there. The cards are on the table. I think it's execution time. Just take the converts, work on the people who are sitting on the bench and just do it. So yeah, hopefully, that 130 is like, it's just like a sales target. We're going to reach much before. Thank you.
Let's get the action going. Absolutely. Vasudha, coming to you. What does equity mean to you?
To be very honest, this whole thing about equity, equality, to me, to a large extent, it sounds like rhetoric, to be very honest. Because, see, personally, I may be privileged. So I have never, ever faced a situation where I've not felt equal to, somebody of another gender or in any other position, or, I've always had the intrinsic power to be seen as who I am, so there's never been this thought about equality and equity and whether I'm being treated fairly or not. But I think somewhere, and what's the benchmark? What's the benchmark of equality? When you say equality, it's a relative term, right? So it has, you have to bring it up somewhere. So is the male gender higher than the female gender? What is the equality that we don't think? So I would like everybody to, I mean, it's kind of, I can say that this is a provocation to the panel, perhaps, to really think about what equity means and how does it impact each one of us. Do we really need to be equal? Do we need, people to be fair to us? So I think there are a lot of questions. I do understand that there are people who need to be lifted up, but equity, equality, I find that again to be a bit of a, it's a bit nebulous to me, to be very honest.
Right. I think, yes, you said that. You said, I think collectively this panel does come from a place of massive privilege, because I think
Absolutely,
all of us own our spaces and our voices. But it's important to remember that we continue to live in a world where only 22% of parliamentarians around the world are women, where from 9% to 60% of pay difference between the same roles between men and women exists. Like I said, we're also privileged to be in an industry which fortunately has a lot of space and sort of gives voices to the people that it brings in. And I think that privilege and being conscious of that, and considering we work in the space of communications, it becomes our onus and responsibility to ensure that we don't allow it to be a rhetoric. It may be a rhetoric for us, with the reality outside. But I love the fact that you question the question on equity and equality. And Neha, I'm going to come to you at this juncture and ask you what equity really means to you, and then we'll come to Chaya next.
Okay, so I think Vasudha and Gitanjali already touched upon it. I think we definitely, all of us sitting here, are definitely privileged class of the society. And like Vasudha said, this question of equality was never ingrained in me. Okay, am I getting equal opportunities? Am I not getting equal opportunities? I think, but as we have gained more experience and we're getting more aware of what's happening around, I think for me, equity is also about giving equal opportunities and giving everyone the platform they deserve. I think not being biased, and it also once we start instilling it, especially I think, and it also starts from the top. Today 70% of my workforce is women, and I have young parents. 80% of my senior leadership team is women. So I think once that culture is inherent, I think you end up attracting more talent, you increase retention, and I think it also boosts morale of the employees. So and honestly, I think we are also lucky to be a part of this industry at the moment, because we are reaching there. We're not there completely, but I think we have to take the ownership to make sure that we imbibe an unbiased and a fair culture.
Right. So imbibing the unbiased culture, and Chaya, coming to you and what equity means to you. I think after this, I have a couple of more questions which I'll do a round robin of, but on this one, let's get your thoughts.
Okay. So, I'm the last on the panel and everybody has said, which we all agree, but I just like to leave one point. Equity is a matter of the heart, and it starts from the home. So, the 130-year journey, if you want to finish it fast, we need to bring that at home, right from the people who work at home and at our workplace. So if our perspective is right, I think equity is not going to be a word that's going to be played around.
Right. Okay, so on that note of equity, I'm going to now switch gears and talk about diversity. And let's remember that I'm not referring alone to gender diversity. I'm also referring to generational diversity, skill-based diversity, diversity of various backgrounds and cultures, diversity of also freedom of expression in any form and way and manner. So where do you think we are, and where do you think we need to go from here? And this is a specific question about, are we practicing this within our own circles, and are we as women of privilege and women of voice and space really bringing the diversity conversation into the fore? And I think I'll start with Neha, and then we'll go around this way this time.
I think in terms of diversity, we still have a long way to go. I think I personally don't know of an agency or a company in our particular industry who probably have a transgender as one of their employees. So I mean, that's a very small little thing, but that inclusion needs to start from us, is what I feel. I mean, I think studies have indicated that companies with more diverse hiring have increased rate of productivity. The business retention is better decision making. The kind of exposure diversity brings to your own company, I think that's something which we probably as leaders are probably not looking at that right now. And once we start acknowledging it, I think we'll be there.
Right. So let's start acknowledging it as Neha put forth. Vasudha, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to ask you the same question. Talk about diversity and where do you think we are and where do you think we need to go from where we are?
See, I think Neha is absolutely right. I think we're very far away from reaching a place where we can say that everybody is included, and diversity is part of our, like it runs in our bloodstream, so I think, yes, we have to make that very conscious effort, and I think as empowered women, we, like, I think I'm repeating myself here, that we are the change makers, so when we start really working with our teams, mentoring our people, really changing the environment around us, looking at maybe our children, our friends or whoever, and really talking about being conscious of the biases that we have, so we don't know what are our unconscious biases. Why do we like somebody, and why does somebody just simply put us off? It may have nothing to do with it, and it may not be because we are mean people or because we like to differentiate. It's not like that. It just happens because these are something that we have inside of us. So tomorrow, when we're meeting somebody or hiring somebody or working with somebody, I mean, we should look at how we are judging people, and why we are making those inferences that why do we think that this person is probably more efficient, or that person is more capable of traveling, or that person will bring a lot more to the table. I think somewhere examining those nuances within us, what are the patterns that we seek, what are the patterns we repel, and looking at those aspects and making people aware of it. And I think this panel is really wonderful in that sense, because we're talking about these things now, and it'll reach out to a larger audience, and people will then realize that, yes, diversity is not about them, diversity is about me, it's about us, so we need to include everybody, and then that's how it works. So
yes,
that's
absolutely. We need to include everybody, and that's the point that I think I'll hold on to from this piece. And Chaya, I'm going to come to you, and then to Priya and Geetanjali. Chaya, tell us about diversity and your angle and lens on it.
Okay, so I come from a company, SAP, which is extremely conscious about diversity across all segments. So it's gender diversity, or generational diversity, or religion diversity. We also have autism at play, and we also bring in transgenders. Pride of month is like a big agenda on cards for us. So thankfully, what I see around me is that diversity is bigger agenda. The board is conscious, and people are hiring people from across diversity. So that's the first step taken. But I very strongly feel that if we really need to be a very diverse set of workforce, we need to ask for the chair on the table, and that's what we don't do. So if there are people in the generational diversity, they need to stand up and ask for their right. They need to prove themselves. So So from where I am seeing the lens is that there is the consciousness and there is diversity on cards. People are recognizing it. People need to start asking, getting up and asking for their rightful right.
Okay, perfect. So remember that it's a constant conversation, and you need to bring it to the fore, and you need to call it out when you see that there is unconscious bias. So there is some form of non-inclusive agendas that are happening around us.
Absolutely.
So Priya, let me come to you and ask you for your thoughts on this one, and let's see, and let's go from there.
Sure. So Shreya, you said that we need to have constant conversations. I would just like to add another C. Constant candid conversations, and I'll be very candid in the next 1 minute. First is somehow, while organization, individuals, PR heads, Copcom heads, they do their bit and with the right intent. But what happens is we've also kind of fallen into a pattern where, if March is coming, we gear up for Women's Day. If there is June, there's Pride Month. So somewhere I would like, if there's one message I would want to give to the audience is step back and think of diversity of thought rather than, with gender, with section. Start with diversity of thought. In a work life or even at home, it should be merit-based whatever chair you want at the table, let it be merit-based. Performance, our roles all have to be gender agnostic. So I'm just staying because of today's occasion, I'm just staying on gender diversity. I'm not getting into the other, variants of diversity. But I wouldn't like, I can really take full liberty and speak on behalf of every woman professional, as part of this panel and audience. Would we really like to be, to have a chair on basis of entitlement? No, we don't want. Yeah. So gender doesn't come into the picture. Choose me for my merit, choose me to what I bring to the table. Let's not have people, let's not have voices and see, okay, where is the voice coming from? Male, female, women, men. Choose us on the basis of entitlement. There's no quota. So I think all those things, being very candid, it's agnostic. So first of all, and again, this I'm talking about pockets which are evolved. I completely understand. I'm empathetic of unevolved pockets where, they are still scratching the surface. But if we are the haves in this landscape, then first of all, just get rid of, like a lot of people said here, special status. What is special? Sometimes we want a special status and sometimes we want equal. And so sometimes, there is this cobweb that we keep changing. We want to be equal, special, above, we have 10 hands. What is it? So it's a diversity of thought. Blur those lines is just individuals. If we are talking about professional life right now, blur those lines. I'm a professional. So is my, colleague who's a female, who's a male. We are just professionals. What do we bring to the table? And we as voices to our organizations or to our teams backward, it shouldn't come into the conversation. Why? It's like it happened with me. My daughters, when we moved from Bombay to Hyderabad, their earlier school was a girls' school. So when we moved to Hyderabad, it was a co-ed. And she, for a long time, kept on saying, Amit, my classmate who's a boy. Okay, so this happens because suddenly you're in a landscape where you have to call out. And I took time because she was quite young, and I had to say, I get it, Sarah. And even if the name is Kiran, which is for a girl and a boy, it's fine. We'll get it. You don't have to call out, if it's a male or a female, So those kind of things, I think that's where, if I have to sum up, it's diversity of thought. Let's learn. Let's be candid.
Absolutely. Because equality only comes when you stop asking for special privileges. While yes, social justice is needed in systems and places where there is no equity or equality already, and we need to bridge that gap, let's be conscious of the fact that asking for special privileges actually goes against the entire construct of equality. Right. Gitanjali, coming to you on this particular question, because after this, I'm going to go, I know I have 2 more questions, but I'm going to go into a rapid fire because I'm conscious of the time that we have and I want the questions from the audience as well. So Gitanjali, coming to you on your thoughts on diversity.
Okay, quick, Shreya. I know you're on a really short time leash here, and I know everybody's covered most of the points, and I kind of agree with Chaya when she says, the kind of availability of resources and employee resource groups when it comes to different kind of diversity. I've been in organizations where the journey has already begun, organizations where they're beginning, and organizations with extremely mature place when it comes to diversity and the acceptance of differences, at the end of the day. Just two things, Shreya, I would like to point out. I think it's a big difference if you're thinking both top down and bottoms up, when it comes to bringing about that change.
Yeah.
Top down, because let's say if you're saying, let's say the Companies Act in India says, okay, you've got to have diversity on the board, mean it. I would look at the leadership to really mean it when they're doing that. Do not put a woman out there who's your wife or your sister or your aunt just because the name has to be there. Mean it, because she will bring the value to the table. And exactly going by what Priya said, it is merit. It is absolutely based on merit. And that is how it should be when it comes to a mindset change. Bottoms up, it is for all the diverse, people out there, all the different thinking and accepting, the differentiations amongst us. I think you need to stand for yourself, whether it is a woman, whether it is an LGBTQ, whether it is, differently abled. Stand for yourself. You need to demand equality. It is what it is. And in today's day and age, you have to build your confidence and strength to ask for your right, because it is your right to be out there, to be in an environment which is equal, which actually empowers you and accepts you for what you are. That's my 2 bits.
I feel like in the parliament when they hit the bench, I feel like all of your voices, I feel like doing that. But true applause, really, because I think none of you really, held back on sharing what you feel. And I think these strong voices and these conversations need to come to the fore every day to challenge people and challenge the way they think. Talking about challenges, I'm going to do a quick rapid fire. We have about 12 minutes. We have 2 questions from the audience. So I'm going to do a quick rapid fire as what do you see are the top 3 challenges and obstacles in this journey that we're looking to get to. Chaya, I'll start with you and then go around. 3 challenges, 3 words, and that's it. And we'll go to the next.
So challenges actually are not real. I think they are a perspective. It's how you take it. I grew up with body shaming because of my sheer size. So for me, any challenge is a small challenge. I grew up with it. So challenge is a mindset. Challenge is, to my mind, is not real. It's a perspective, how you take it. And challenge is good. You learn with it.
Okay. Yeah, so Priya, challenges and obstacles in your context.
Okay, Chaya nailed it. My first is mindset. Like I've already said, it's a mindset, just step out of it. The other is to be conscious, because, I might have overcome the first challenge and then, I just get swayed because in the rhythm of things. So it needs a check and balance all the time. So that's a challenge. It has to be sustainable. And the third part is when you really overcome, how do you raise a helping hand? Otherwise, there's no point. You just go with, alone with it. So how do you make it into a community thing? So I think these are the 3 things.
Right. Gitanjali, over to you.
First and foremost, Shreya, unconscious bias. And that's not just for one gender against the other and vice versa. It's everywhere. Even I get biased. I assume sometimes when people are not talking to me properly, he thinks I'm a woman, so he's not talking to me properly. Why? It's just because maybe I have an irritating personality. Who knows, So that is an unconscious bias, and it should be both ways. That's number 1. Number 2, I think somewhere culture. It's falling through the cracks. We are not supporting this piece of change, and it has to start from home, like Priya had mentioned. Number 3, I think commitment from people who are the haves, or the people who are, in a place where they can afford to take. So the big commitment to bring about that change and stand by that commitment then.
Absolutely. So there you go. Vasudha, over to you.
3 words, right? So I think it's about resilience. We have to be resilient in the face of challenges. Very important. I think as senior professionals, we should also be looking at mentoring. Focusing on building community, building strength, and the third thing would be confidence. So I think just go there and get it. I think that's most important.
Go there and get it. And Neha, coming to you. Yeah.
Okay. So I also agree with Gitanjali. I think the biggest challenge is a failure towards having an open and unbiased thought process, which eventually leads to prejudice and stereotypical behavior. And number 2 and 3, I would say, would be patriarchy, which is again grilled into our systems. And of course, in the metros, we're seeing a change, but not in tier 2 and 3 cities. And the third, of course, is culture. I think that inheritance of that culture has to change. So for me, these are the 3 top things.
Absolutely. This reminds me, since we all spoke about unbiased, being unbiased. I think there was this line of saying unconscious bias should become conscious unbiased, and this was my CEO yesterday who was sharing that. I'm going to challenge myself to be consciously unbiased constantly. So on that note, I'm going to pick up the 2 questions from the audience that we have. Priya Pugaukar asks, while companies talk about diversity, women often find themselves in roles which are less challenging and less rewarding. How can we change this scenario? Anybody wanting to take this particular one?
I'll take it, Shreya, to begin with, and then, company, it's almost like government versus public, right? Government is not doing anything, or whatever government has done. So in the same analogy, I think the organization time and again have voiced their intent. It's good intent, and we, as professionals, carry that intent into campaigns and actually practice along with HR help. But there's only that much we can do. I mean, it's not all encompassing. So therefore, I think whoever wishes to have, and it's a candid opinion of mine, whoever wishes to have the accountability that, okay, at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day, what did I do to actually either help somebody who's trying to bring that change or do something? What's my bit? So I think if everybody, dons that hat of accountability, I want to make a change for myself and maybe, a fellow colleague, it's all about numbers in that sense, joining hands, just resting on the organization. Because what is organization? It's all employees put together, right? There's not like a board of directors who can churn all these things. So that's one angle, and I'll leave it to the panelists if they have something to add.
Anybody else wanting to add anything else to that particular
question?
I'd
just like to share a perspective here. I have worked in manufacturing quite a bit, and in one of the organizations where you have, factories, and in which you have CNC operators, the people who are really on the floor, and then there are technicians who go to the clients' factories to fix the machines when there is a problem, right? So in one of our organizations, I remember, it was a big talk of the town that a woman came and she said, I want to be a service technician. And would you believe it? She came, and the first step that the organization took was, this is excellent. We have to have her, but let's talk to her. Does she know what she's in for? And what was the next step? The HR, the business head, everybody sat her down and counseled her and tried to understand from her perspective, why did she want to do this? Do you know what you're in for? It's not a joke, right? And the woman had the right belief, confidence, and commitment to the cause. She said, no, I love it. This is what I love doing. Give me some time. I will show you what I can do. And what was the result? It became a case study by itself. One of the first organizations to have a service technician who was a woman, who did wonders, because what she brought to the table was not only understanding of the problem, multitasking, but also sensitivity towards the client and his or her needs. So if you ask me, what should organizations do? First of all, organizations, again, I think it's a top-down approach. The leadership has to be sensitive, has to be accepting, and has to commit to the cause of diversity, not just gender, but otherwise. Commit publicly, pledge publicly. And from bottoms up, have the confidence, guys. If you have the conviction to make it happen, it will happen. There is nothing that can stop you, but you've got to have the conviction to make it happen.
Absolutely. Personal conviction meets societal standards. I'm getting a lot of questions. I'm going to quickly go into this one so if we can get quick answers. Priya talked about getting chosen based.
Yeah, I think the voice is breaking.
Yeah, Shreya,
I can't hear you.
The voice is garbled.
I'm so sorry, apologies. Is this fine?
Yes.
I hope you can hear me. Okay, so I said the next question is, Priya talked about getting chosen on the basis of merit, but diversity plays a huge role in education opportunities, which in turn affects merit. So does anybody want to take this question on educational opportunities?
So I'll talk about it. See, in today's day and age, I'm not sure, whether there are unequal opportunities out there. I think it's about really understanding, and especially, I mean, even in rural areas, I mean, you see girls, cycling, going to school, those opportunities exist. It's all about changing our mindset and saying that, yes, this is what I want and this is what I will fit into. I mean, what Gitanjali talked about was a great example, right? So if we have the conviction, I think there are, I mean, I know no colleges or schools in India say that, we only have 30%, we'll only have 30% women.
True.
No, I think everybody has the capability and the choice, and I think we should try and make the most of it.
Absolutely. There's a question from Sanika Nevaskar, who says, I would like if the panel could talk about intersectional equality. Women from different classes, caste, economic backgrounds, or body types are also treated differently, sometimes by women themselves, making women intrinsically oppressors. How should one keep our privilege in check then? I think this is something that the panel discussed actually, and the question has come up, so I'm going to leave it open to the panel for any of you to address it.
I think just have a very, to answer that, we need to have a very strong HR system. So I think and have a great, strong policy, stronger culture, like, body shaming, or, creating distinguish between people based on their caste or creed, not giving them equal opportunities. So I think that has to stop, and having a strong, Gitanjali also mentioned, it has to start from the top, and you need to set that culture in play.
Absolutely. We have one more question, but we're out of time. So we will take this question up on Twitter and I'll put it up to all of you and you can all respond to it. With that, thank you so much, Chaya, Neha, Vasudha, Gitanjali, and Priya. What a phenomenal conversation it's been. I think we've touched upon various aspects of personal lives, the self, the culture, the collective, and of course, organizations. Thank you all so much for joining us. I quickly end a poem while we bring the others in. I'm going to read out a poem on our panel. It's as we all spoke. Equity is empowerment, fair justice. Let's not talk about equity when it's the skin in the game. Inherent versus acquired, naturally flowing, beyond average awareness and miles to go. But let's get the action going beyond the rhetoric, conscious of our privilege. Intrinsic power to be seen as who we are, and what's really the benchmark? More questions than answers, equal opportunities and access in platforms. Stepping away from bias. Equity starts at home. Fix the perspective. The change starts with you. Inclusion starts with you. We have a long way to go from where we want to be. We are the change makers and we know our unconscious biases. Let's talk about this in the agenda of diversity. Ask for a seat at the table and start with diversity of thought. Gender agnostic conversations, critical, candid, constant conversations, mean it, own it. The magic of merit, resilience, community, strength, and confidence. In a nutshell of what we spoke about. So congratulations to all of you and thank you so much for joining us today. Ladies and gentlemen, that was panel 1 at India Impact Communication Conclave, and what a power pack panel. Thank you once again to all of our speakers. Without further ado, let me now introduce our next panel, which is on leading from the front and raring to go. What does it take for young leaders in communications to make it big? This panel comprises of young leaders in communications. Please welcome Abhilasha Gupta, Tech Mahindra, Akanksha Jain, Bharat Pay, Hepzibah Rosario, Razorpay, Sangamitra Bhargav, Byju's, Sri Das, Lenovo. And this is going to be moderated by Mukta Lad, Comms News. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our next panel, discussing on leading from the front and raring to go. Over to you guys.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Shreya.
Welcome, Mukta. Stage and screen is all yours, and over to you and your panelists. Looking forward to this one.
Thank you so much, Shreya. Thanks for that. Hello, ladies. How are we today?
Hi, Mukta. Doing good. How's everyone?
So to maximize on our time, I'm just going to dive straight into understanding from you what is it that young leaders can do to become senior leaders, right? So my first question is to Sangamitra from Byju's. Sangamitra, for young women leaders such as yourself in the PR comms world, let me begin by asking, I'm sure you encountered the problem of, not really the problem, but the point that you have to make your mark and go up in the system. How do you counter, say, the lack of gray hair and something that, especially, in a tech-based startup, one would assume is a room full of men? How do you make your mark?
Okay. Very good question, in fact. So for me, again, my personal view on this is that, with our work or whatever you're doing, right, if you're really, really passionate about it, it might take time, but it comes to you, right? For me, purely what I have done is when I joined PR, I knew that, hey, this is what I want to do. And I gave in my 100, 150, 200% to it. And over time, that has sort of shown result. One thing that's sort of really helped is having the right mentors and guidance, right, in this industry. That sort of really, really guides you. Always reach out if, you're confused or you don't know which way to go. I have been lucky because all my bosses have been, more than boss, they've been friends and mentors, and they have sort of shown way more confidence in me at times than I myself, right? So that sort of gives you the kind of confidence to sort of get going on that. Coming to your question with regards to filled with men, again, when I started, I think in the agency days, when you start at the junior level, it's filled with women, right? So many good friends you make at that time. But that time itself, when I was there, I realized, hey, on top, you get, you see mostly men. But I, for one, genuinely believe that that's sort of reducing, because with the number of startups that's coming up, a lot of organizations, right? Like women are getting that sort of, front row seat when it comes to being part of PR. So I think it's all about, things are changing, and we as women leaders, one of the key things that I like to do is always bring up women, be there to inspire more people, because a lot of times a lot of girls don't even think or aspire to be like, hey, I can do that. So the more women on top, I think that will help more women reach there.
Because ultimately it is about uplifting each other and helping each other grow, right? So I think that when it comes to women especially, I think that's very important that we help each other rise up the ranks once we've reached a certain stage. Thank you so much for that. My next question is for Abhilasha from Tech Mahindra. So Abhilasha, you're a senior communications professional in the tech sector, okay, which again is looked at as a very male-dominated, male-skewed space. How are you taking, as a young leader, the tech story further? Have you felt that because of your gender that has proved a little difficult, or, especially in this industry, how have you taken this story further?
So Mukta, I think you're right. Tech sector is predominantly dominated by male professionals. But having said that, I think I am very privileged because, say, my in-house team is an all-women team. The extended agency team is actually 90%, if I'm not wrong, all women. So I have had the privilege to not just work with women around all day round, but also to promote young women and the young women talent. So from that perspective, I think I have been privileged, not just in terms of gender diversity, but also I think there's diversity of age. So I mean, at my organization's level, age is not something that is being looked upon more than your performance, more than your skill sets, more than the caliber that you have. It's more about the individual you are. And I think equality is achieved not when you think that everyone's same. It's not that we have to be identical. It's when you cherish the diversity of thought, and the individual is all that matters, irrespective of gender, age, nationality, or any sort of diversity when you talk about that. So I think I can just safely say that I've been privileged that I work around women, I am able to promote women, and as a woman, I've never felt that my work is being spoken about after my gender, which is in itself a privilege.
But if I were to just extend that question to about a woman who's not in that privileged space, what would you say to her?
So I think my one comment would be that charity begins at home. Unless you feel that, I mean, in the previous panel I was watching, and they talked about how the woman has a guilt that when she's leaving her children behind, or when she's not being able to say cook meals, then there's a sense of guilt that not only the society sort of pushes towards you, but also as a woman you feel that I'm not taking care of the home duties that I'm supposed to. So I think the first step is for the woman herself and the individual themselves to feel that it is okay, that it is fine that I am going to work. It is fine that I am not performing a particular duty and I'm going to work, or I am sort of neglecting, how they say, any household work, and and prioritizing their work. So I think the most important thing is that even before the society tells you something, or your family or your friends or your professionals at work tell you something, you yourself say that it is okay, and you seek out for help. You ask family and you tell them that this is what I have to do. I'm not being able to perform this, and could you help me? And you feel that it is okay for you to do that. So I think your self-empowerment has to be the first and the foremost factor in you being able to prioritize that work.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you for that. Coming to Akanksha, the general consensus, and even Sangamitra touched upon this, right? Is, whenever it comes to the industry, that and there's research that proves that there are more women in PR than men, especially below a certain level, right? The research says that somehow this doesn't hold true for women CEOs or firm owners. Also, although that is changing a lot. As at an important place in your career, how would you say that you would shatter this glass ceiling that seems to exist?
Well, I think there is a glass ceiling, and more so, I've actually experienced it myself. When even in smaller organizations, you generally end up being in a room full of men and a few women leaders here and there. But how do you break it is the point, because you want to make an impact and you want to not let the world kind of affect what you want to achieve in life. I think the most important thing is you need to play by your strengths. You need to know what works for you and push that clearly in front of the key leaders.
Yeah.
The second thing which I think is very important is you should be patient, but you need to be assertive. So there are a lot of times when people just shun you down and why do you need a hike, why do you need this, and it happens a lot of times to a lot of women leaders. Okay, you're making this much money, it's good enough, why do you need more money?
Yeah.
But you have to be assertive. Why do you need a team? It's just you're just a cost center. So how do you push your agendas? Be assertive, get your points in place, and then go and talk about it. I'm sure if leaders understand the value that PR communications brings on the table, they'll really promote it. And also what Sangamitra said, to add to that, I think if you have great leaders who kind of promote you, and also not only female leaders, I've been lucky to have male leaders and male bosses who really promoted me and let me do what I wanted to do and really trusted me with it. It really helps you because it takes you to it really helps you to kind of go to the next level, put your point across, be in the right forums, be in the right platforms in the organization. So I think that's also a very important thing, to find mentors wherever you go and essentially communicate that your needs via those people. I think these are 2-3 things that come to my mind. Also, do not get frustrated. Keep adding onto your skill set. This is something I learned in the startup world. It's a plain slate. You can go and kind of add new skills, get new responsibilities. You have to be proactive. If you keep adding to your skill sets, it will help you get bigger responsibilities.
Right.
Give you a perspective. I'm an engineer, joined PR with no idea of PR, and then kind of built on to marketing communications. Then came digital marketing, which we had no sense of, and then I tried to learn a bit more about digital marketing to add to that, to my skill set. So all of that plays along and helps you become a better leader and break the glass ceiling.
Right. You spoke about being assertive, and that is something that always is advice that is especially given to women leaders and maybe even junior leaders, gender no bar. How do you become more assertive in the workplace? Because there is so much baggage that you're dealing with, and especially if it's not something that is in your nature, essentially, it's going to be a very difficult thing. But it is a skill that I feel more people need to imbibe. So how do you go about asserting yourself and convincing people that this is the value that I'm bringing and this is what I deserve?
So I'll take about a minute to try and give an example of how I
Please
did
go
that.
ahead.
I joined an organization where PR was just about sending one press release a month and getting 3 stories. That's
Okay.
about it. And led by a very senior guy who was ex Coca-Cola APAC chairman and all of that. But still, PR was one young guy sending one press release, getting 4 stories. That's about it. He never thought PR could be important. So that's when I actually went to him. I explained to him, okay, I'll do 1, 2, 3 things. He said, okay, you can do it till I don't have to spend money. That's the usual response a lot of us get. If it's free, it's fine. If you have to spend, then I'm sorry. So I said, okay, you give me this much budget, I will do it. Then I told him I want to scale it from say 1 city to 4 cities. They were just doing a say Delhi PR. Then we scaled it to 4 cities, then scaled it to 10, and then maybe did a multi-city roadshow, 10 cities launch in a matter of 40 days. So essentially showed him the value. And I told him this will help, this will, in startups, whatever helps you raise more money, increase your valuation sales. So I told him this will help you. He said, okay, how? Show it to me. So I had to work on a lot of reports to show him that, this is the value I will bring on the table. It's not about a certain number of stories. It's about how the interest of the investors increase. And it's about a lot of other things that come to you
Yes.
as a byproduct. So then slowly, then communications, from communications, I moved to content. I told him we need to build a content destination. We need to build something which stays for a longer time. And it's something which is more engaging for our target audience. He said, okay, if you want to do it, I will only give you this much money. I said, I'll do it, and this will help you raise the next round of funding. And I actually helped him build a 1.5 million users online community in a matter of like 3 months. And he was all gaga about it, and he's like, okay, PR. So what happened in the end was that people started using PR as a tool to save their own
Yeah.
whatever limitation, so to say. So people would just come and say, okay, I'm working with PR on this because they couldn't achieve their targets. I'm working with PR on this. So I turned it around to in a way that no meeting would happen without PR person, and everybody would bank on PR to show that they are actually doing some value add. So you have to just build it step by step, brick by brick, and actually show that you are making an impact where it counts. Because
Yes.
obviously we cannot show that, because of my story we got you that that business. So you
Yes.
have to show it from a bigger impact.
And PR also happens to be one of the departments, if you were to call it, that has to prove its impact over and over and prove its value. So I think carving that niche from the beginning is extremely important, because otherwise you'll be questioned, what are you doing? Or, you're overlooked after a point. Anybody wants to add anything to this in terms of, making a mark where you proactively go ahead and make things happen for yourself? And this is for any young leader, especially at this point in their career. I'll be happy if anybody were to take this question, please.
I actually resonate a lot with Akanksha, the pointers that she brought up, right? I have a very similar story, not fundraising wise, but in terms of sort of, in PR, we always sort of, all of us are very inclined towards content also. So the next most progression is that, hey, let's look into content. So I also did something similar where, when I started out, it was like, okay, fine, she's doing something, let her do it, right? And over time, it's, it sort of takes such a good shape that today everyone wants a piece of it. It's relating to a couple of blogs that, I had sort of come up with. So going back to the point, I think it's very important to be assertive, as Akanksha pointed it out very rightly, and give all your might to it, because there will be times where, say, for example, maybe your leaders also don't believe in you, right? But there are certain things that you can do in your capacity and still get going. So I think whenever some ideas come to you and you believe in it, I think giving it your best and trying to make something out of it really makes a mark. Yeah.
Wonderful.
I'll probably add one thing to what Sangamitra and Akanksha have been saying, right? Completely on point that as it is, there's a gender stereotype associated with women being not too assertive, right? Which might be true for, a bunch of women out there. I don't think it's true for the women in this panel right now. They've clearly struggled and fought their way to the top. But it's a learning that we have also absorbed from our journey, right? Where we have all failed at times, and we have learned from those failures, and become more assertive and demanding for what we need to do. Just one thing which I want to add is that Akanksha raised a brilliant point that, you need to show the value that you're bringing to the table and build step by step builds that credibility of PR, right? One thing which I learned in my journey is that while you do all the good work out there, right, it's even more important that you map your internal stakeholders within the organization, especially if you're working in a large organization. You're not going to be, just one or two people knowing the work PR is doing is not going to be enough. You need to map out enough number of stakeholders and make sure that they are aware of all the work that is going on externally and the ROI that you're bringing to the table, especially if it's for their business. And another thing which I've learned because of my previous stints and this Lenovo stint is there are a lot of teams, right, which are untapped from a PR potential. If we go to them and tell their stories externally, you immediately build allies within the organization, and that only helps your case further within the organization. You also asked that to Sangamitra, that how do you grow within the organization. You also asked Akanksha that. So building your allies within the organization is very important, and that's how you walk up to the top, fighting the gray and the female women battle.
Shri, actually, I'm going to continue and just take one audience question that's come in. So basically, Priya is saying a few years ago, this came from a very senior person in her industry. He said that women make a lot of noise around empowerment, but when it comes to taking responsibility and risks, they tend to backtrack. She thinks that it is also a general perspective and sometimes is true to a great extent. And how can we women come out of our own comfort zones without feeling guilty? And especially around this perception, if you wouldn't mind taking this question.
Sure. Priya, I would say brilliant question, because some people might believe that's true, that women like to say that, oh, women empowerment, women equality, but we don't fight for ourselves, and we don't present a strong enough case for ourselves, which is where we have all spoken about this topic one way or the other. Build your allies, right? That's how you build your own network. Support your allies, and it's not just about it's not just about supporting your other female colleagues as well. If we are talking about women empowerment, it basically means equal amount of power for both the genders within the organization, in the society as well, right? So of course, wherever you see an opportunity, build your allies, help your allies, whether it's a female or a male. And specifically, right, talking about women empowerment, I personally disagree with what you've quoted, that women don't fight for, women are all talk and they don't do enough work for women empowerment. I think everybody in this panel will probably agree with me, because I personally am a big promoter of women empowerment. And today, we are lucky, the women on this panel are lucky to have reached a certain stage where they have a voice within their industry, which means that if they talk, people will listen. And we all try to use that voice to make ourselves heard, to make our set of women heard, and sensitize people, sensitize our leaders. I'm sure everybody on this panel has had their conversation with their male spokesperson about gender sensitivity, and about being a little more open to diversity, inclusion, making them realize how important that topic is, and how you can't shun away by giving it to the HR team, or somebody from like the PR team to take that as a responsibility. We all are working very hard to make sure that the leaders of the organizations, including ourselves, are sensitized, are working towards D&I for the organization, internally as well as externally. And wherever we see opportunity, we definitely harp onto that. And we all hope that we can set examples for future leaders, for people who are following our footpaths or our leaders' footpaths, to continue the same journey and continue empowering women, by giving equal opportunities to both the genders.
Yeah. Just to add to what Shri was mentioning and to be able to answer that question,
Ask you to. Yeah.
I would say focus. Yeah. It's very important to, it's all about focus. What are you focusing on? And what are your perspectives? If you're focusing so much about, hey, women, this is how women are perceived, then you will tend to believe that, yeah, growing up. But if your focus is about doing what you gotta do and never think about not doing it, in that journey, you will inspire some people and you will not inspire some people. And that's okay. You know, you do what you got to do and give your best. And I think in that whole process, you will break the glass ceiling. And I also agree with what Shri was mentioning, and probably I'll be speaking for the rest of them here. I don't think that is true for most of the women today here. There was a time when that was true, but not today. I don't think so. We feel guilty about, not having done what I think we all do a lot. And that's why we are here where we are. But if we focus too much on the negative, then the negative is what is going to perceive us. So I would just say that focus more on what you do best and continue doing that. Don't let anything distract you. And I'm sure that you'll break challenges. You'll create, sorry, that was a train that passed by. You'll set new benchmarks, and that's what you're supposed to do. So focus is very important.
I'm glad you brought that up, because see, one thing is that, we keep talking about a work-life balance, right? And that means different, I'm still generalizing right now, but one would assume that, that means things slightly differently for women, especially women with children and more responsibilities at home. So a work-life balance would mean something a little different, because, life is also, there's a lot of work there. However, the truth of the industry is that it is a service-led industry, and it is hyper dynamic, and there are lots of things that are perpetually on. So in light of this, how would you, with the pandemic also making it crazier, how would you say that, we maintain this work-life balance and create a space that is, okay, work is important, but so is life? How do you personally also do this?
I think there's no hard and fast rule that works for everybody. We're all in this whole process and journey, and we're learning how to. I don't think so any one of us would have said that, hey, I am now completely 100% balanced in terms of managing my work and life. But I think it's also about setting your priorities right? It's also about helping people understand and voice your opinion when you're not able to do as required. For example, there are times when they say that, hey, please turn your cameras on all the time. But I'm in the middle of probably taking care of my mom. Yeah, but I can't. But I'm listening to you, but I'm being proactive and being responsive to that question. So it's also about voicing out your opinions. When you can't and it's not possible to, go ahead and tell them and let them know. You don't have to fall under that pressure. And I think it's also about priorities. Definitely work, because there are times where, and there's a very thin line right now.
Yes,
there is no defined line that, it's going to be from 9 to 6. I've been working on
simultaneously, right? I mean, it's not at this hour this will happen, then that'll happen. You're
exactly.
juggling so many things.
Yeah. So I think it is about acknowledging what you're going through and being true to it and being genuine to what you're going through, because there's already a lot of pressure around you. Don't submiss yourself and under more. And then at the same time, when you are acknowledging it, let other people also acknowledge the same. Voice it out and tell them that, hey, this is the time I'm available. And I've started doing this, that earlier it used to be that, it used to go on till 12, 1 o'clock in the midnight, and I would be working and trying to manage both. But now I've started we have this Slack channel. So what we do is that you tell the time at which you're available. So if it's from 10 to 7, then 10 to 7 is your work timings. After that, you're not available. But of course, it's probably easy said than done, because we all are in the media profession and we do get calls last minute. But then if you at least have that discipline in mind, if you at least have that discipline set in place, people will perceive that, hey, okay, Hepzibah is not available beyond 7. If there's anything that I need to do or get done or need help with, I'm keeping myself aligned to that. So voice out your thoughts and voice out your opinions.
Right. I'm going to come back to Abhilasha to ask a quick question. Abhilasha, what would you say to, there's this inherent thing especially after this pandemic, where job security, etc., is being questioned, right? So just taking off from what Hepzibah said, where you drawing boundaries for yourself is important, because otherwise you'd just be doing this 24/7, right? But at the same time, you're also fighting this thing where if I don't do this, then, how will I establish my value? How can I refuse it? My team members are doing things. So how is it that, you counter this plus an imposter syndrome? How do you counter this and tell yourself that, no, I am achieving this, this is my value, and I don't need to prove beyond this?
Mukta, I think what helps me personally is having a very goal-oriented approach. So in PR especially, and I can speak for everyone, I think here, a lot of the things are impromptu. You don't know when a crisis is going to hit you. You don't know when an announcement's going to come in. A lot of the things that happen through your day are not pre-planned. But what helps me is that when I wake up, I have a very set agenda, that these are the 2 things, 3 things that from a strategy point of view, I'm going to deliver today or in this week or in this month or in this quarter. And no matter what, if I keep going back to that list through the day or through the week, then I will deliver that. And no matter what the other items that keep coming up and pushing my schedule through the day, if I have that pointers, if I have those pointers handy, then I can keep revisiting those pointers, and my agenda is never lost, the overall agenda. So it's very important to not be distracted by things that come up, and to be very focused, and to keep your priorities straight and know what you want to achieve. So if you know what you want, then you get it and you run after that and you're not distracted.
Right. My next question is a very important discussion I think we all need to have, is for Shri. An important point, especially again for women, because this is something that women face more, is this all important pay package negotiations. There's no hard and fast rule. There is no, you mostly sometimes you feel like you're winging it. I'm asking too much. Will I lose out on this opportunity that I really, really want? Let me not ask for so much. Can you draw from your own experiences and give aspiring leaders a way to approach this conversation? And, it's something that the earlier you learn, the better,
So probably, some people will hate me for saying that, but I completely understand where you're coming from, Mukta, because I have been there where I have questioned my worth and what I'm bringing to the table, and probably compromising on whatever was being offered on the table. But it is a learning that has come with my journey. When you have realized how much you've given to the company, when you've truly sat down and introspected that, okay, because of all the work that I have brought to the table, today the company, is able to say so and so things, and, is truly understood externally. There's so many people outside. And that learning has only come with true introspection, that I have done some good work. I deserve more than this. So first of all, I think it's, again, everybody has said the same thing: believe in yourself. Never, ever doubt yourself. I think confidence, and sometimes even a little bit of overconfidence, is completely fine when it's about asking for your worth. Yes. And it's true for, it's not just true for young leaders, it's even true for really senior people who are women in organizations, because I have personally experienced that, they still question themselves, and, they still question how worth is their work. And very easily getting dominated by other men's perspective on their work. So that's the first thing. I think that's the first battle that we internally need to win. That you are worth it. Please believe in yourself. Have confidence. If you need to brush it up and go into the overconfident mode, that's also completely fine. Sometimes it's good to just be out there and be really loud. The other thing is introspecting, which is a personal learning for me. We all love doing work. We all love doing good work. But a lot of times we forget to count the impact, right? And it's counting the impact and telling people the impact is what matters. I'm not talking on behalf of everybody else on this panel, just on my behalf. I truly am not a good person when it comes to doing my own PR. It's been a very, very difficult journey for me from that perspective.
Smiles are telling me that everybody is resonating with this.
Yeah. So clearly I am speaking on behalf of everybody then. And it is something that I've seen is true for a lot of my peers in the PR industry as well. So that's definitely first thing that you need to do. Because when you introspect, you do your own PR, automatically that confidence will come to you, wherein you will be able to demand for more.
Yes.
And I personally feel that women are great at negotiation, right? When I think it's just general that when you're buying something for your house, for yourself, everybody is going to be very excited about negotiation. That no, reduce this and all of that. But we don't do that when it's about our own worth.
Yes.
I think it's literally just replicating the same innate negotiation power that all of us women have to prove your own worth. That hey, no, this much is not enough. I deserve like 50% higher than this. And go for it, ask for it. A lot of times, right, when you just ask for things in confidence and show the work that you have done, people usually hand it over to you. Because it's also a little difficult to debate with females when they're truly in the game.
And especially PR.
Yep.
PR women.
So we are like the lethal category. We are
in your blood, right? So we should
exactly
take it inward as well.
Yeah, so that's what summarizing. Please introspect, do your own PR, have a lot of confidence, and ask for your worth. This is like the main mantra. I have learned it the hard way throughout my career, but I hope that other people can keep these things in mind. And no matter what place you are in your career, always ask for what you're worth.
Sangamitra, would you like to add something to this?
Yeah, definitely. I think I myself have experienced this pretty early in my career. Something that really helped was, again, adding on to Shree's point, right? Go out there, ask for it with all full conviction, right? Because if you have done the work and you can show it, there's absolutely nothing standing in your way, right? And if that still doesn't work out, then obviously you'll have to figure out a different way out, or I don't know, maybe move on to some other places. But definitely, all of us, one thing, we don't do enough PR about ourselves. We are like so happy. We are like those ghost writers, right? We're just so comfortable being in the shadow. So I think when we do our work, when we put goals to it, and we actually put numbers against it at the end of the year or 6 months or quarter, right? When we look at it, and if we go prepared for our discussion, it becomes so much more fruitful, I think.
Yeah. And also I think it comes from a place of I have worked hard and my boss will notice and somebody will notice and the universe will just give me what I deserve, you know. And it doesn't work like that, because you have to be able to prove with logic that cannot be refuted that this is what it is, right? I mean, the person should not be able to say anything to that afterwards. That is the kind of space that you need to build for yourself.
Yes.
Great. Awesome. I mean, this was a very, this was something that I really, really wanted you people to weigh in on.
I think just one thing which Sangamitra, very softly touched upon, but it's very important, especially for people in the tech industry and, established companies, numbers. PR has always struggled in showing business ROI, right?
Yes.
Because there is no direct linkage that we have till been, we have been able to establish against one story and the business impact of it. It's going to be a larger impact, right? But there are enough and more metrics to show the value of PR. And believe it or not, people love numbers, especially people sitting at the top. They love numbers. So please, this is a learning. Don't forget to quantify your work in terms of metrics and how you've performed for the company across different messages, even if it's something as basic as clip count, share of voice, to something as civilized as like individual message tracking for the company, and how it's performed and how the scores for marketing and for the brand reputation have been impacted because of the work. Please have numbers handy, remember your numbers, work on it, deliver on it. Sangamitra made a beautiful point, and I think it's one of the most important things when it comes to your negotiation power.
Hepzibah, I'm going to come to you now. You have paved your way in this industry and you're sitting where you're sitting. What is the advice you would have for ambitious young professionals who are making their way in the industry right now? Some learnings that you would want to share that you have learned the hard way. And another thing is, how do they empower themselves from a young age? You know, I don't think you need to reach a certain stage to be able to empower yourself. You should just start that process day one.
Sure.
What would you have to say to that?
Great. That's a good question. Let me take the first one. I believe all of us here, Akansha, Abhilasha, Sangamitra, and Shri, all of us have already shared a lot of insights, and my thoughts echo the same. So I'm just probably going to try a practical route because there are also CorpCom and agency professionals in our audience, I'm assuming. So let me try and share something that has worked well for me in my agency days and as a CorpCom. And that's helped me reach where I am today. And I hope it benefits everyone here. I think the first thing is that a practical point would be create news in the absence of news. That's something that I've really believed in and followed or practiced all throughout my 8 years. And it's that when you say create news in the absence of news, it doesn't have to be only newspaper or online. It could also be social, and it should be social. So don't always stick to, creating news for a product launch or an acquisition or a new funding round, but just go beyond. Think of new ways of being in the news. It could possibly be an employee angle, like a 24/7 helpline for employees who are unable to manage work-life balance. That's something your company is doing. Create news about that. Or, a customer who's struggling with a solution at probably 1 a.m. in the night and how your CEO helped him out. Create news about that. So don't stick with the usual storylines. Create news in the absence of news. And your company will value you more when you think beyond and show them the results of that approach. The second point would be, and this is no jargon or this is not anything new, but this is very important and I believe we all agree to it, is that build media relationships. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that, hey, let's do RBMs. Did you know that most journos hate RBMs? And they may not tell you. Actually, the term RBM was coined by us and not the journos. So don't waste 60 minutes of somebody's time telling them who you are when they can just Google it, right? So give them more. Build relationships by giving them new story ideas. Avoid this whole RBM. If you're doing an RBM, then do it with a purpose and give them something more to chew on. And that brings me to the last one, is that create compelling pitch notes. Work continuously on your writing and storytelling skills. Your target, the journalist, they receive on an average about 30 to 40 emails a day, depending on their seniority. And most of these are press releases. Yeah. So they receive a compelling pitch only once in 2 months. And that is me being highly optimistic. Otherwise, it is nothing less than once in 4 months. And I'm not exaggerating. These numbers are actually quoted by a very senior Bangalore journal. So don't be lost in the clutter. And how you're going to not be lost in the clutter is because when you're able to kind of create something new, create a compelling pitch note. And the other thing that I've learned over time is that if you like a story and if you saw a story that you liked and you're thinking of reaching out to the same journalist for a similar story for your company, stop there. Please don't. Yeah. Think, why would the journal do a similar story again? So in short, media is hungry and they're wanting storylines. It's up to us as to what is it that we give them. The second question about how can women employees empower themselves from a young age to make it big in communications? I think I would probably reiterate some of the points that have already been made. One is believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will. Yeah. And create new benchmarks. Create your own world. Don't settle for the usual. And be tough on yourself. That's something that I have been on myself for a while. And it's okay.
It's an important advice. Hold yourself to a higher standard.
Yes, always. Look for opportunities where you can learn. And personally, to me, none of the opportunities or none of the learning that I have had in the last 8 years has ever gone in vain. It has been beneficial at some point or the other. Yeah. And the second is don't talk, show. Yeah. Like everybody said here, your management team may not understand what PR is or how it works out, but the one thing they do like is numbers, and they love insights, and they love stories like a front page story. So speak their language, don't speak yours, and show them the impact of PR. And I'm sure that you'll, with time, it of course doesn't happen instantly. You keep, there's a very important to be consistent, yeah, in everything that you do. And with consistency, you will achieve what your goal is.
Right.
Just to add to what Hepzibah said,
Yes.
I think another thing that's really worked for me is building an ecosystem around me. So I think building a support ecosystem, and I mean, this does sound like a fairy tale of sorts, but I can tell you when I'm drawing from my personal experience that when the pandemic had hit us, which was around March 2019, when we started 2020, when we started realizing its effects, and we were without a Copcom head, and we're a 1,25,000 big organization, and it was, and I said I have all women team members in my team, and it was all women who said that, hey, we think you can do this, and we think you should be doing this, and we'll support you in every way we can. So I think if you have that sort of an ecosystem around you, not just at work, but also at a personal level where people are promoting you, that is very helpful, and it really helps you to become a young leader, irrespective of your gender.
Wonderful. I have one question that's coming from the audience, and I would love it if Akanksha could take it. It's actually funny. An anonymous attendee is asking us, these fundamentals have been reiterated for years. Why do you think we're not getting it right yet? Everything that we've said in this panel.
Interesting question. Let me try to respond to it. So while it's good to give a lot of gyan, so to say, to do X, Y, Z things, a lot of us kind of end up not doing it or not putting it into practice every day because of multiple other challenges that kind of we are overcome with. So that is one reason I think that, while we know it all, practically we know it all, but we are not really putting it into practice every day because we are trying to get the next story out. We are trying to manage multiple stakeholders. That's one thing. Second thing is that, this believe in ourselves. We believe, but we believe in phases. There would be a bad day and be like, oh, I am sorry, I'm not cut out for this. We're like totally shattered. So we have to keep believing in ourselves, telling ourselves, a lot of self-talk really helps to tell yourself that, you have it in you, you can get there. That's where we, I think, miss out because we get influenced by people around us. We get influenced by a lot of things that people say, and everybody's is not there to praise you. You have to be your own motivator and you have to have your own drive. So that's one thing, one reason I think it also because of which it kind of gets missed out. Thirdly, we end up being in the rat race. We keep saying, okay, X is getting this much money or XY has achieved this much, I have not. Ideally, I think the better way is to benchmark it to ourselves. You want to be a better version of yourself. What you were today, you should be better version of yourself tomorrow. So that would help you to kind of, I think these are things, if you follow along with all of these suggestions, it will really help to kind of be a great, break the glass ceiling and be a great women leader in the times to come. One more thing, especially in fintech, which we see, which I have seen personally, and adding to what the pretty ladies have already said, is that I feel a lot of communication professionals have come with very limited knowledge, and they do not have an understanding of the industry per se, because we are also moving industry, so we may not have, we know our subject well, but we do not know the industry nuances well. So if we add that to we take it as a task to kind of add those that knowledge, those skill sets into our daily conversations, maybe take help with the stakeholders who are there, learn from the industry leaders, whoever you can, it will really help you. For fintech, for an example, I had no idea about fintech. Like, I don't like finance. I know technology very well, but I never used to like finance. I was like, I can't do this. But leaders I met on the way, business leaders, they actually guided me, and I used to go to them with even the smallest of questions. What is a payment gateway? What do you mean by this? Now, what are these multiple partners in the ecosystem? So those kind of questions, you have to understand it in depth, because only then you can pitch it right, and only then you sound like an intelligent voice of the organization. So I think these things would I hope I was able to answer that question, but these are things which should be done in addition to all the mantras that we've given.
Yeah. I would like anybody to go ahead and add to this. And especially, I want to see, she brought up a very important point about upskilling. You know, this is a very dynamic industry also. And sometimes it feels like the same principles and whatever that was happening 10 years ago are still being used in the same form, some or the other. So I would like somebody to add on to what Akanksha just said, especially with the focus on the need to constantly evolve your skills and keep in touch with everything else that's happening with you.
So quick input here. So we are all from the tech industry. So I think technology has a big role to play, and there's so much that technology can help you even as a PR professional. So just to give an example, we have a press release portal at Tech Mahindra, and I mean, it was only launched last year, and we're using it to minimize the work that we need to do something as mundane as writing a press release. And there's so much scope for technologies like machine learning and AI to help us with intelligent content once that database is made. So I think it's very important that you leverage technology to its best potential. And every day there's a new innovation, and thankfully we're in the industry, so we know the facts and the figures, but why not use it to be better communication professionals? Because it's not that the technology will take away your job. It's just going to make your job more intelligent. It's going to let you have the bandwidth to make more strategic decisions, to have more strategic inputs, and let the mundane and the regular stuff be with the technology. So
right. And with that, our time is up. Thank you so much for this and this extremely insightful conversation. I hope our audience has taken some key takeaways that they can practice and grow to be wonderful leaders. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you so much. Thanks, panel. I think the future is in safe hands for sure. Some of you I know well, and some of you have inspired with your words today. So the glass ceiling exists. Don't let it get you down. It's a clean slate. Add to yourself. Own your spaces. Let others hold you up to. Be assertive. Make your way to the top. Learn and absorb. Let your failures teach you. Empowered responsibility without guilt is the way forward. Standing up and standing tall. Walk the talk and lay the foundation. Focus on what's powerful, believe and do your best. Step past the guilt and set new benchmarks. Ask for your worth and negotiate and pave your way. Start young and start soon. Build relationships and speak their language. Stay consistent, practice every day, counter it all, and you'll own your space. So that from your conversation, ladies. Thank you so much to all of you for having joined us here today and for that wonderful conversation. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Now,
thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. Okay, so moving on, after that conversation on leading from the front, we look at gender bender or gender no bar. Women in leadership, driving with purpose and fulfillment. This session is again moderated by Muktalad, the editorial consultant of Comms News, and includes Bhuvaneshwari Cheruvu, our teens, Geeta Banjia, Phillips, Preeti Binoy, Kimberly, Clark, Priya Patnakar, PhonePe, Sushmita Bandopadhyay, BT, and sorry, it's moderated by Mithu Samar from Eminence. Mithu Samar from Eminence moderates this conversation. So can I invite Bhuvaneshwari Cheruvu, Geetika Banjia, Preeti Binoy, Priya Patnakar, Sushmita Bandopadhyay. Over to you, Mithu. The screen, stage, all of it is all yours.
Hi everyone. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be a part of a panel with such accomplished women, and I'm sure it is attended by the industry experts as well as amateurs who are trying to learn a lot from these accomplished women. So our topic is on gender bender. To a great extent, these are the women who have tried defying the traditional norms and have tried not only to just defy them, but also establish a name for themselves and create a professional imprint in whatever they do. What's more, each of these are, holding leadership positions in organizations which are, again, of repute. So, like how they keep talking about whenever there's a conversation on gender and diversity and women workforce, conversation always is around the leaky pipeline, on how a lot of us are not able to even sustain the entire corporate pressure. These women, including myself, I would say that we have not only stayed here, but have fought the stereotypes, have made our own presence felt, and are holding leadership roles in variety of organizations. So having established that, let me move straight to the conversation and invite Bhuvaneshwari here and hear from her that what did she do, not only to break the gender stereotype, but also leverage the core of this gender, which is based on compassion. So over to you, Bhuvaneshwari. Bhuvaneshwari, you have to unmute your line.
Yeah. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, and wishing everyone a brilliant and fantastic Women's Day and a fabulous 2021 to a very agile, compassionate, and balanced leadership that we're trying to bring about in the workforces that we are, right? So when we talk about gender bender and breaking the stereotypes, there is something that I would like to start the conversation with and probably set context for the rest of my colleagues and peers from the industry here to talk about. So a couple of months back, I came across an article in the New York Times titled "Picture a Leader, Is She a Woman?" Right? It was a title that struck my attention. And when you look at it, what that article actually said was that when a lot of people were asked to draw an efficient leader, most of the times, including women, drew a man, right? That has to say something. So subliminally in our thoughts, leadership is being attached to strength. And when we are saying strength, the association is more to physical strength, right? And that is what I would say is a very classic stereotype. And how are we breaking that stereotype, right? And what are we trying to do to break that stereotype? I'm very glad that, I come from a family that has taught me to break the stereotype, because I did this little experiment at home and I was very surprised to see even my little nieces drawing women, right? So I think there is something right that we've been doing. And if I have to talk about what I have seen, the 10 years of leadership roles has taught me something, that it was not very easy for making ourselves get a voice at the table, right? I would say that I've worked with a lot of good men in leadership, and that has actually given me this the support and the necessary additional advantages to reach to where I am. But now when we are talking about what are the conscious choices that I'm making, right? And how am I negotiating my choices to be where I am and to actually create an impact in the position where I am, I take a choice to voice my opinion out and ask to be treated equally when I am not, right? There are a lot of times we keep talking about somebody treating us equally, but are we opening our mouth and saying, hey, listen, I'm not being treated equally and I want to be treated equally? I think that is a very, very important thing. And another thing that I have been doing over my career is to trust my own inner voice and advocate for myself. So these are a couple of things that have actually helped me in trying to break out of the stereotypes when they actually existed. And I would like to pass it on to my next speaker to put in their thoughts.
Absolutely. The two important points that you mentioned, negotiating your choices and also being visible, that's very important. And that takes me to Geeta. Geeta, having worked in a multinational company, where there are structures, your bosses are sitting in various geographies. How does one even make themselves visible? As a gender, we have a challenge, but then it's a bigger leadership challenge as well. So how do you make yourself visible? What's your take on that, Geeta?
Okay, me too, it's Gitika.
Sorry.
So, No worries, no problem. So first of all, thank you so much, and Team Reputation India, and of course, as my fellow industry colleagues, it's so glad to be here with all of you. And Bhuvneshwari, well, she kick-started the entire pretext or the context of the conversations that we were wanting to establish here today. Is that was absolutely very much positive on terms of getting those, breaking those stereotypes that we all women have been grown up, especially in a society like ours, a country like ours, and taking from there, taking that thing forward. And as you asked me, Mitu, that working in a large organization, or how does that connect, or whether it's in terms of survival, or those terms that we are talking about. I would like to add something here. In my viewpoint, in my personal view, whether one works in a global organization, whether it's a local organization, I personally think that as a professional, whether you are a male or a female, most important thing is what value you bring onto table as a functional leader. That is one of the most imperative things that is coming up in the last few years now. How you create a niche for yourself, and then how you define the ecosystem around you in which you are operating, and how the organization then starts responding to you, how they start reaching out to you, how they start engaging with you, and then at the end, how you create that repository of respect for yourself. So it is not just, whether a male leader is doing it or a female leader is doing it. So, and I would like to also add here, gone are those days when, people when people were used to getting that respect, just flashing with designations or visiting cards now. Those days are over now. However, now in today's scenario, the actual respect comes to you only as a professional when you bring that value add to the work that you can bring onto the table when you're working in a particular organization, and when you help the organization to achieve the particular objectives, their vision statement, their mission statement, and how you as an expert, as a functional leader, or carrying that functional expertise with you. And with that, I feel, Mitu, it's nowhere a question of a man leader or a woman leader is able to survive. This is an absolute thing where you can just think of thriving and not just surviving. Absolutely. So it's all about bringing that value to the work that you are getting onto the table. Apart from that, the experience that you are carrying with you, and how much connected you feel to the organization that you're working for, and get into the grassroots levels and bring up solutions to those problems. How open you are to feedback, and how encouraging as a leader you are to personal and professional growth. So that's what my take is on this.
Great. No, I completely agree with you. In fact, a challenge like this, where you talk about working from the grassroots level, extremely pertinent, but becomes very difficult when you're working in companies which have cultural diversities also, right? We all are talking about diversity. Gender diversity definitely is challenging, but cultural diversity again is another big challenge that we all face. And here I would like to understand Preeti's comment, where how are you managing between multiple cultures that you work around, Preeti, and still again have your voice heard?
Hi, Mitu. Good afternoon, and thank you for having me part of this panel. Belated Happy Women's Day to all the fantastic women leaders that are on this call and listening as well. Neetu, what a fantastic discussion to have, right? And while I was listening to Bhuvaneshwari, Kitika, I'll just give you a small instance. It just goes back for me to remember just two purpose statements purpose words that I really hold strong to me, right? voice and the mind. I've always believed that for an individual, and I'm saying an individual, it could be a male, a man, or a woman, right? For you to be possibly heard in the business community or at your workplace, you definitely need to use the mind to be able to bring out your creativity. I'm just replicating what the other two leaders just now said, right? At the same time, a very important point that Bhuvneshwari brought out, let your voice be heard. Because you might have some great ideas, some great thoughts. And if you're not going to able to bring them to the table or to the forefront, you're always going to be the backbencher. You will never get that front seat. Having said that, cultural differences, cultural biases do exist, do persist, right? And especially for a lot of leaders like us who work in matrix organization, who work in multinational companies, we've seen that all over. But I definitely would say, and I can definitely speak for us Asians as well, I'm seeing more and more Indian talent, be it a man or a woman, taking the center seat, taking the center stage, and goes back to showcase, right? Yes, they have intelligent minds, great minds. I'm not saying the others don't. What we are doing differently, possibly, is getting our voice out there, getting heard there. And that possibly is the reason that we see a huge shift and change happening. I'm also seeing a big, huge change happening for Indian leaders going into larger roles in organizations or in multinational companies. It's because they're seeing that the talent is really getting nurtured there, and we're making optimal use out of it.
Yes.
Right? So I do see that really working well and wonders for a lot of women leaders as well. And I think it's just not the fear that we should let sit with us to say that, oh my God, I'm working in an organization where there are going to be huge cultural differences. There could be barriers pertaining to my skin color and may not give me a leader seat, right? That's not the case. It's changing, it's evolving. And I think it's also changing and evolving because of a lot of people like us, right, who have decided to come to the forefront and make that change. And hence, I would go back to the same principle of what possibly the two leaders also spoke about. Get the mind to work around, showcase your strengths, but most importantly, let that voice be heard. Culture does not become a barrier then in any kind of matrix organization that you're working.
True that. In fact, if you get your voice heard, I think more and more people are receptive to that. Like even the organizations that I have worked in, all multinationals, but yes, similar experience. So I completely resonate with your thoughts and opinion. And however, something which really struck out for me was while we do all these things, trying to position ourselves in leadership roles, etc., but at the same time, self-confidence is extremely essential. We have to believe in ourselves, and for that, one of the things which is very, very essential is how financially sound or financially comfortable we are, because a lot of us don't raise the voice with the fear of losing our job. But if we have financial independence, some of us can even take a step like me, who chose to be an entrepreneur and set up an organization of our own, right? So that takes me to Priya, and let me hear her opinion on what does she think about financial independence for women, how important it is. Priya, over to you.
Thank you, Meetu. Great to be here. I think you hit the nail on the wall when you said financial independence is extremely important. And I think as women, we are, if you look at our childhoods also, right? I mean, most financial decisions sort of bypassed us. If there was a car the family was buying, you'd see the boy of the house extremely excited. Very few of us would be participating in that decision. No, she doesn't know much, is not interested in cars. You know, when it starts like that, when you grow up, the bigger decisions start bypassing you. Essentially, I know so many, I have a team, almost all girls team. I know so many of them, they're aware of what they are earning, but they don't know how to save enough. The KYC process is something they've completely outsourced to the men in the house. Most of them are wary that, hey, if we end up investing and we make a bad decision, what happens? I don't see the men sort of the house playing the stock market and thinking, hey, I made a huge loss, therefore should be a little more circumspect about investing. So essentially, I think what ends up happening is, unless there is financial independence and we women consciously think of it, our entire thought process gets governed by it very strongly. I'll give you an example. I think it's known that women generally negotiate their salaries very badly. I've been told that in jobs. I've been hired, and there are managers who've told me to my face, hey, we were looking at a candidate at a 25% higher salary bracket than you negotiated. You did a bad job on that. And we also then consciously start taking up roles with fewer P&L responsibilities because we're shying away from the financial aspects of our lives. So I think it's a vicious circle. We need to make sure that we make women or men, it needs to be gender agnostic. Financial literacy is a must.
Absolutely. Financial literacy is a must. And then comes the second aspect of taking care of ourselves, which is the healthcare, right? So a lot of us assume, again, a gender stereotype that we are the caregivers, right? So we keep giving care, we keep taking care of our people, but a lot of times we forget to take care of ourselves. So much so, like we were having a chat earlier where we discussed that a lot of us don't even have an insurance for our own selves, as basic as that, talking about financial independence. So let me move on to Sushmita, who represents this industry also, and talk to her about breaking the stereotypes with respect to healthcare and women.
Thank you, Meetu. Thank you for that question. Yes, it is indeed a stereotype that women are caregivers and we really cannot take care of ourselves. So I think first we need to break that stereotype that we are allowed to take care of ourselves, and taking and self-care, if you go by the definition, it's something that you need to replenish yourself, and it can't be just about indulgence. The world teaches us that you find out an escape route, go to the hills and, come back rejuvenated. But typically what happens, even if you're going out on a vacation, you come back very tired because you're actually running from pillar to post. So the concept of self-care has to be that I'm allowed to take care of myself. I need to let go of that criticism, that criticism that I am very critique of myself and I'm very harsh on myself. I need to let go of that. That's very important. We are obsessed with being the perfect, having it all kind of women leaders. I think we need to just let it go. Let that, because in the previous panel, I heard someone say that I'm being very harsh on myself. I understand that the moment we get into a job, into a leadership position, we are under scrutiny. We have 90 days to prove ourselves, right? But I think we need to let it go. Let that go. You will shine wherever you are planted. You will bloom. That is for sure to happen. So a good combination of wisdom and compassion can bring in effective leadership in women. I think I will leave it at that because I know we have some more things to add on to by our other panelists. Thank you so much.
Lovely. I think very, very pertinent point that you brought out, Sushmita. In fact, at that, we will also encourage audience to ask questions parallelly. We intend to, keep the session a little interactive. We already have our first question coming in, so I will take that. But I would encourage audience to, ask questions as we go along. So this question is about it's about people in the Northeast community. What can we do? So according to the question, a group that is not very present in mainland India, what can we do to encourage these communities? As an, it's a very, very important question. India is a country which itself is full of diversity. So let me, since the question is pointed towards Preeti and her comment, let me let her answer this question.
Thanks, Meetu. Wow, I was kind of expecting that question, but I think I'll go back to the same statement I made. Let your voice be heard, right? Today, not only restricted to communications, but when you look at the fields, the kind of talent that's coming from Northeast is wow, right? And the reason very clearly is they let their voice be heard. Get the mind and the voice in action, get them to work well to see the change and see wonders. So that's just the mantra, and I strongly believe that one should follow that. Not only if you're someone from Northeast, you could be from any part of the country, right? When you have the mind which has some fantastic talent, and you have the voice more than important, that's where you will be able to shine.
Absolutely. Anybody else who wants to add to this thought? Geetika, you want to add some?
Yeah, sure, Meetu, and absolutely taking from what Preeti said, that your voice needs to be heard. And I would like to reiterate on the initial thoughts that I shared, that it's all about your professional and your strong personality that needs to come out in terms of your expertise and the value add that you can bring. Be it anyone, like Preeti said, that she mentioned, it's not just about Northeast or North or South of the country. It's not about that. As a professional, as a strong person, as an individual, if you have that in you, nothing can stop you. So you bring that value add on the table, and sky is the limit for you. So that's what I would like to advise whoever the person who has asked this question.
So,
Meetu, I want to add a point here, Meetu.
Yes.
As much as we want people to voice their opinions, right? As a part of the leadership, right, there is something called conscious inclusiveness that we need to practice, right? So there are certain communities, I agree, India is a diverse country, right? And there are certain communities that have been feeling this for a very long time. So from a leadership perspective, I think it is imperative that we act conscious and include, because an unconscious exclusion is what makes people feel left out, right? So if there are people, there are different ethnicities in your group, as a leader, you need to make that choice, and you need to be extremely conscious that you are including them and putting an effort to include in the, just so we don't exclude without our knowledge. I think that is something that I keep reiterating to everybody on my leadership team, because we need to facilitate it for the youngsters. And when they feel comfortable is when they voice what they're thinking.
Absolutely agree with you, Bhuvna. In fact, this is something I consciously practice, where conscious inclusion is something we must do. And again, it is not about gender. It is not about the area from where one belongs to or anything. Even, say, for instance, a group of youngsters might feel intimidated in a meeting which is comprising of seniors and juniors both. So in a situation like this, including them consciously will make them feel more included and more valued, respected, and that will help them grow better as professionals. So yes, conscious inclusion is a very, very important point that you brought out. In fact, that brings us to the next question, which is again very similar to the point that you had made, though it's a question from an anonymous attendee. But the question says that, do you think that men leaders especially are conscious of and acknowledge importance of compassion? A discussion that we had in detail even yesterday about it, is compassion gender agnostic or not? So let me first ask you, Bhuvna, about your thoughts, and then if anybody else wants to add.
I think compassion is gender agnostic, but why sometimes we land up associating it with the female gender is because, physiologically and psychologically, women are made to be compassionate, because It's the womb and the umbilical cord. And going back to life sciences, right? We are structured that way. But having said that, trust me, I am where I am today because of the compassion of a lot of male leaders I've worked with. So I think it is gender agnostic, but considering that women get it more naturally, probably sometimes the other side has to put in an effort to work on it. And that's what I would say. But then again, you could be extremely intelligent, your IQ would be hitting through the roof, but without compassion, there is no leadership. Empathy and compassion should come before everything else.
True, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, that another anonymous attendee, please share your names. We want to know you better. So another anonymous attendee is asking this question, that can we talk about how women are expected to have masculine leadership traits to be seen as good leader? Sushmita, do you want to share some thoughts on it?
So there's a recent movie on Netflix which talks about Steve Harvey's book. It's based on that book. Yes. Think like a man and act like a lady. I completely reject that. Why do I need to show my masculine trait to impose that, yes, I am a woman leader? Come on. Gender has nothing to do with leadership. Yes. If I'm compassionate, if I'm wise, if I have the right skill set, the right attitude that I bring to work, I am a good leader. And leadership is also about situational leadership. It doesn't come with titles always. You look at a mother, for instance, in a family, she's a leader, while man is the stereotype breadwinner, but woman, mother is the leader. That's a role that she's playing. So I completely, would throw a fit at this actually. But what I would suggest that let's look at some actionable points which can enable even our men leaders, sorry to use men leaders, to be perceived as compassionate. They believe in networking. We all believe in networking, the power of connections, mind network, to collaborate and bring together people. That is being compassionate. We only believe that being compassionate is being soft-hearted, being empathetic, being in someone else's shoes, allowing that half-day parental leave which is needed. No. Compassionate is this group, if we gather together even after today's webinar and connect with each other and continue to invest in each other's lives, that's being compassionate. So I think it's gender agnostic. I strongly believe in that. Yes, I would like to end at that and allow other speakers to add. Thank you.
Sure. Priya, do you have any thought on?
Sorry.
Sushmita has just put that so beautifully, I thought. I mean, I think the only thing I'd like to add is the myth is that women can't take hard decisions. I mean, I've had conversations in which, colleagues have said that if a colleague has to be given tough feedback, are you up to it? So, and I've told them on occasions, of course I'm up to it. I mean, why wouldn't I be up to it? Just because I'm compassionate otherwise doesn't mean that my gender sort of stops me from being objective to get the job done. I think that's a myth which is sort of mistaken for being empathetic or compassionate. But I've seen, I mean, as women leaders, we are negotiating tough decisions all the time. I don't see that coming in the way at all.
Absolutely. In fact,
Neetu, I would like to add something here. Yeah. So, I mean, Sushmita has just nailed it and she just put it beautifully. And in fact, that was something passing across my mind also. And I had read this very beautiful line somewhere that feminine is not a gender. It's just a dimension of our society. So without females, of course, a society's existence is absolutely questionable. But why are we just, always getting into that debate of a male and a female? Absolutely. Any leader, any form of leadership, any person has some or the other form of leadership qualities in them. It is a very natural quality which is ingrained. It's just, it depends from a person from a person to a person, whether male or a female, how that person nurtures this quality and comes up with it bad or beautiful. That's it. And I mean, one of the, I would not say one of the most beautiful point that Sushmita also said, Our mothers, they are born and natural leaders. They take everything at the front foot. They lead from the front. They make a house, run a family, keep the family members together, just like a leader who tries to keep his or her team at the work front, which is extremely important for achieving any kind of success in our life. So I think that's one of the most beautiful points that we have tried to make across, in our discussion today.
Mitu, I would like to add one very quick point, Mitu, because this is a beautiful line, right? And I totally accept with what Geetika and Shushmita have said, and that is the whole concept of the yin and the yang, right?
Yeah.
There is a masculine and a feminine in each of us, and when we bring out what aspect of our personality is what is the most important, and that is what balanced leadership is, right? Balanced leadership is not having 4 women and 4 men in a boardroom. Balanced leadership is the man or the woman bringing out the necessary quality at a given point in time to lead from the front in an appropriate manner is what is important. Right. And as Sushmita said, I would throw a fit for things like that as well. Be a man and act like a woman. I'm like, who creates these kind of things? And somebody who gives an okay to copy like that, I think the corporate communications should form a mutiny. Right? That's unacceptable copy. But balance, yes. The balance of the yin and the yang is the most important.
Yeah, these are all traits, right? And all of us need to have various leadership traits in us, irrespective of our gender. And I think a lot of us, all the panelists who are present here, and I'm sure quite a lot of listeners as well, we all believe in the fact that it's not got to do with our gender, which makes us successful, professional. Forget the leader, that also comes at a later stage. But as for being a successful professional, it is the qualities in us that we are harnessing, which is what makes a difference and helps us leave a professional imprint. Than whether we are more masculine, more feminine, or we are born men or a born woman or anything of that kind. And at this heated conversation, I was just going to move to a certain question, but then suddenly an audience question has come. So let me first take that before I move to our concluding remark. The question is, what is your opinion on maternity leave? Because women exert themselves too much and cut short their leaves because they are scared to lose the job. Also, they are not given important, challenging tasks after that. Khushi, coincidentally, my daughter's name is Khushi too. So this question seems very personal, but a lot of us here are mothers. So we have gone through that. Each of us have children at different life stages. So all of us have our own experiences to share. My personal experience has been that it's all up to us how we are, responding to this situation, because every maternity situation itself is different. So there is no one answer to this question. One thing that I realized is, it was important, like we are going through a lot of uncertainty and feel, disappointed when organization shortchanges us because of us going on maternity leave. Even organization has a challenge. They are not having you for almost about a year, right? So it is equally important for us to make our communication very clear with the organization too. What are our plans? And again, very significant for us to keep the communication two way. And all of us are communicators. So while we are expecting organization to work in a certain manner, we also have to respond accordingly. On that note, let me just bring in Priya and request her to respond to this question.
So, I'm a parent who did go on leave. When I came back, my role did not exist in its current form. I mean, that's how life is. I have people in my team who've gone on maternity leaves. They've come back. Was I able to retain the same role 6 months down the line? No. But were we able to honestly work around giving them a role which they liked in my team? Yes. Because I've been through the challenge and the journey, so I understand that. I need to completely agree with you. while we would like life to, go back to normal once we resume work, a year or even 6 months is a lifetime in any organization's journey. And as managers who are managing the team, we also realize that we are often enough working in a week-to-week planning and crisis mode. Sort of planning that 6 months down the line is not done. So I think a couple of things, supportive manager helps here. Having a manager who believes in you and is willing to sort of take the bet on you being able to transition easily helps. Incidentally, most of my managers were men, and they were immensely supportive when I came back. So while, while usually we expect more empathetic response from a largely female leadership, in my case, it was not that. So right from getting back to the role I wanted to transitioning back to working from home for years and years, everything was sort of negotiated with male managers, and it worked out fine. So I'd say that really you need a support structure inside and outside work to help you negotiate that, because marriage, mobility, and maternity are the three important criteria which sort of make or break your career.
Absolutely. So on that note, let's just move towards the closing remark because the next panel is also ready, and I'm sure people are willing to listen to more nuggets. So the theme this year is Choose to Challenge. So very, very quickly, what do you choose to challenge? Sushmita, starting with you, rapid fire.
I choose to challenge any kind of stereotype that pulls women down. And I choose to challenge that my future generation is going to get a better mindset around women and men, both as leaders. Thank you.
Gitika.
Yes, me too. And I choose to challenge people who are assumptuous, they are judgmental. They don't even think once before taking a decision, that you are just assuming things and judging people on certain criterias which don't even exist sometimes. So that I absolutely go ahead and want to challenge those people that please do not assume and just judge on some internal just coming out of a gut feeling. So look at the facts, what someone brings on the table, and then make wise decisions around it.
Thank God. What do you choose to challenge, Bhuvaneshwari?
I choose to challenge the imposter syndrome. I choose to challenge people believing that anybody, gender agnostic, right, be it a man or a woman, is lesser competent than what they actually are. Yeah, that's what I choose to challenge.
And over to you, Preeti. Quick.
So, Meetu, I think very much in sync with all the women voices over here, I definitely choose to challenge people who try to build a wall which is gender agnostic. So that's something I definitely want to break. And I think we are going that direction. So I hope we can make a change. So that's definitely my choose to challenge.
And Priya, what do you choose to challenge?
I choose to challenge the status quo. Don't be a part of the herd. Be a leader. Lead from the front.
Absolutely. And I choose to challenge the stereotypes that stay within our own heads, right? So before expecting others to really accept us the way we are, or accept women as a leader or professional who's more qualified, being heard, being noticed, allowing us to negotiate choices, all of that, we have to win all that battle first in our own head, that we can do it. And then, of course, as the world, comes closer, they will be naturally and will be more accepting and inclusive towards us. So on that note, I think let's wrap up this session. Thank you so much for your time. And I really think, we can just go on and on discussing this. It's a topic which is so, close to our heart. And all of us have questioned the stereotype. We all have, been gender benders. So definitely, it's a conversation that we can keep going on and on about. But in the interest of time, let's end it here. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Meetu. Thank you so much, panelists. I think, again, a very poignant conversation on leadership. Thank you all very much. And here's a little poem from your conversation. Leaky pipelines, struggling for sustainability, fighting stereotypes, making the presence felt, leveraging compassion, getting past the subliminal conditioning, asking to be treated right. Trust the inner voice and become advocates for yourselves. Negotiate your choices, be visible and show up. Surviving to thriving, the shift that we need to make. Global or local, work and professionalism, ride on the value that you bring to the table. Address your ecosystem, use your mind, unlock creativity. Financial independence leads to empowerment, so don't shy away from decisions. Financial literacy and healthcare a priority. The lens of effective leadership, how feminine is not really a gender, but an aspect of personality. Traits are irrespective of gender, and striving for balance is the need of the hour. Success and professions don't know gender, don't judge by gender, it's people who do. So there you go.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely lovely, Shreya. Thank you so
Shreya.
much.
Beautiful. Thank you, Shreya.
That's such a beautiful
How well
combination of all our
summarized.
thoughts.
Yeah,
It
how
was a
beautifully
pleasure.
summarized into a poem, Shreya.
Wow.
And it's
Thank
so
you.
it's
Thank
so
you, ladies.
fantastic to see you after the last time I met you in Bangalore.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I think it's nice to have these conversations because at least you get to meet people this way. So on that note, thank you so much. There you go. Gender Bender or Gender No Bar. That was a panel on women in leadership, driving with purpose and fulfillment. And now we have our next panel, careers, clarity and confidence, charting the way forward. We've heard a lot of people over the course of the last 3 panels speak about clarity, speak about confidence, and speak about owning their spaces. And this is going to be a discussion where we have Jasmine Pitawala, BCG, Mona Quatra, L&T Financial Services, Neha Mehrotra, Avian V, Shaili Vaswani, Aditya Birla Group, Shweta Munjal Lupin, and it's going to be moderated by Abhilasha Padi, ATDB. Abhilasha, welcome to the conversation. The stage is all yours, and looking forward to hearing from a lot of my favorite people that are on this panel currently. So over to you, stage and screen, all yours.
Thank you so much, Shreya. So nice to have all of you on the panel today. So imagine it's 10 years from today and you're still in the same job. How would that feel? If you're shuddering and thinking, is this as good as it gets? Or you wouldn't even consider staying on where you are, in the same job, the same company, the same industry for the next decade. Well, you might not be alone. And fun fact, work isn't supposed to suck. You aren't meant to become a robo and be going to office day after day and not achieving what you want to do. And that's exactly what we are going to discuss here today. Careers, clarity, and confidence. How does one chart, their career forward? And we're going to add a dash of gender today because it's, of course, International Women's Day. So good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be moderating a panel with such enterprising women, each one of you a leader, an achiever, and a star in your own capacity. Can we do a quick round of introductions? And maybe you could each add at the end of it if you like chai or coffee. Shall we begin with you, Mona?
Sure. Mona Quatra, L&T Financial Services. I'm a fan of chai.
Great. Shelly?
Hi, Sherry Vaswani, Aditya Birla Group, and definitely a fan of chai.
Jasmine?
Yeah, hi, Jasmine Pitawala from the Boston Consulting Group, and I too love chai.
Oh my God, that's a completely chai polarized panel we have today. Neha?
Hi, I'm Neha Mehrotra from Avian V. I have to say, I'm part of the boat.
All right, great. And Shweta?
Lasha, I missed your question. Sorry, say that again, please.
So just a quick round of introductions, and you can just say what do you prefer, chai or coffee?
A chai addict, chai, and this is Shweta Munjal, a proud mother, and of course, a communications professional.
Awesome. So we asked that as a ice-breaking session when someone joins a company new. So clearly a very, very focused panel over here with everyone on the side of Chai. With that, let's just jump straight into our topic. So we're talking about clarity in career and how does one get the confidence to achieve where we're headed towards. So if that's the question, what does a successful profession mean to us? Mona, would you like to take a first stab at it, defining what is success in terms of a profession and how did you reach that clarity?
Okay. So honestly, success is, I treat it as an equation. If on one hand, I have funding my future goals, personal or professional, on one side. On the other side, I have be the best in what you do for your clients and your businesses and demand respect and regard. So it's an equation for me.
Okay. What about you, Shelly? What's your take on this?
So clearly, success for me is managing the right balance and being very articulated and focused in your head about what you want to achieve. You know, that clarity of thought about what you want to achieve, what is your end goal, and are you going to be able to strike that right balance is what success means to me.
So balance, I think balance is the quintessential search that we all have, how to get that balance in our lives. Jasmine, what's your take on this? How do you define success? And I mean, if that's the kind of clarity we're looking at, how did you reach it?
Okay, so for me, success is more of the voice being heard on the table. And it's a combination of everything. It's a combination of flexibility. It's a combination of, being recognized. All that together is successful.
Okay, great. I think voice being heard on the table, that I think was a eye opener for me when I read Lean In. And, I was 30 at that point in time and I realized, oh my God, no one ever told me that. And I think it is very, very critical in the environment, in the dynamic environment that we're all functioning in. With that, Neha, how do you define professional success? And, what you define as success, how did you reach that clarity?
So I think in every stage in our careers, I think we all have very different definitions of success, right? When you're just starting off, it's very different. When you're in the mid-level, you're very different, and so on and so forth. I think for me, for a very long time, success has been about creating something with a lot of authenticity, with a lot of passion, and with a lot of empathy. So if my team members respect and they trust me to do the best for them and look after their professional goals and professional success, I think that for me is success in a lot of ways. Similarly, as far as my clients are concerned, if I do have a voice with my clients in all communication that I have with them, that is success for me. Likewise, I think if I am extremely empathetic towards my team, that is success for me. So it really depends on how people view you and what are the goals that you set for yourself when you're talking of success.
Yeah, that's so well said. Authenticity is so critical in this day and age now in a post-pandemic world, because if you're not authentic, you do not have any kind of impact. With that, Shweta, what's your take on this? How do you define professional success for yourself and how difficult, or how do you reach there? How do you reach that conclusion?
Neha, success to me truly, as rightly pointed out, balance, and important to work, accomplish goals, etc. But I think one of the most important thing for me is, do I have the time to take care of myself? Just turned 40 and I just know that it's so important, and this is like late realization that I have to, find time to take care of myself. I have to have a very sound or rather balanced mind so that, it just makes me help making smart decisions for my company. So I think professional success to me is, I think, really maintaining balance in my life.
So what I hear is, a mix of a lot of things makes professional success for us. Demanding respect, creating balance for ourselves, a voice being heard, authentic leadership, being true to your clients, and of course, time for oneself. So having said that, you're all accomplished women. You must have, arrived at this, but it's not difficult. Clarity in itself as a term can be an oxymoron. How do you reach? How do you get that clear? Mona, would you like to talk over here?
I wish somebody had asked me this question 20 years back, because we think we all do, but we don't. We don't have clarity. We don't have a path clear. We don't have 5-year, 10-year, 15 goals. Maybe the women of today do. I didn't. Okay. So the fact is, you need to appreciate, and we all need to realize that the life ahead is not a clear, shining, beautifully well lit path. There are going to be road bumps and ups and downs, and you need to be agile. And which is why it's important you need to plan your short term and long term goals, both professional and personal, and also learn to be agile and quickly monitor and change your goals to suit the needs. Whether you want to be an entrepreneur 10 years down the line, whether you want to make a living off stock options, living for, working for the same company, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I often hear people that, oh, I've been too long, or that person's been with a company for too long. I am sorry, there's a beautiful, fantastic, positive side to remaining with the same company for longer time if it is doing well, because you grow with the firm, your salary also gets on year, the kind of mental comfort levels that we get as women, and that brings balance to our life, is invaluable. And yes, obviously, each year you have to be better than your previous year, and that's where you get your performance metrics. If you have the luxury of being with the same company, great. Or maybe you have other aspirations, or maybe there are other opportunities that professionally stretch you and you want to explore that, whatever. But just understand that there will be roadblocks, and that is fine. Embrace them, be agile, and move on.
That's very, very well said. I think the importance of short-term and long-term goals is something all of us would have used as communicators for our clients. But I don't think we make that objective, or we think that in a whiteboard for ourselves ever. That's such a wonderful thing to have pointed out. Shelley, what's your take on this? Reaching that clarity, and I said clarity is a very it's a very difficult term. How do you define it? How do you reach it? How difficult was it?
And I think I tend to agree to quite an extent to what Mona said. When we started our careers almost 3 decades ago, that clarity of thought was really not there. The function that we are in today was hardly there. We could count the number of professionals in that space on our fingers. And we were just trying to find a space for ourselves. We weren't trying to be successful at that time. Success was not our goal. Finding a space for ourselves was a goal. Being able to be seen, being your voice heard. Today we understand all that we were looking for. That voice to be heard, finding that little space, being able to get that foot in the door was actually all in the direction towards having a successful career or having clarity and confidence, which we understand today after maybe 2.5 decades. But at that time, I think clarity wasn't there. But when we look at our careers today and we look at ourselves today, I think we're quite clear about what we need. We're quite clear because of our experiences. I think those experiences have really changed a lot for every one of us. We've kind of learned, we've unlearned, we've accepted a lot of things as a part of the journey, because let's face it, unfortunately, we live in a world of biases. We live in a world where we are clearly differentiated amongst men, women, job for a woman, not a job for a man. We've gone through that. So that clarity, even if we had for a career, we weren't going to be able to really make the best of it. But today we know what we want. And I think those experiences bring that clarity as you move forward. So I think experiences play a very, very big role, and acceptance of the reality and moving forward and making your plan accordingly as you proceed is a very big support system for you in your head, that you need to be clear. You need to be clear about what you want, and you start working in that direction. You start doing the maths and you start moving forward. That's, I think, really
true. I think there is no there's no replacement for experience that helps you chart your path ahead. And as Mona before you said, it's short term and long term, and I think it is these experiences that help us chart our long term goals. So thanks Shelley. Jasmine, what do you how did you reach you said balance was very, very important for you. So how did you reach that kind of clarity? What pushed you towards it, and how difficult was it?
No, so I agree that, a balance of both is very essential. And also, what I see is that, as Shelley and Mona also rightly said, that, when we started our careers, maybe 10 years back, we were just trying to get that place somewhere. It was not about success, but getting that place. And, and I see as, things have evolved, and I see the younger generation who's joining my team. I see that, they are very aspirational. They want quick success. For us, it was okay if we were promoted after 5 years, 7 years also, as long as we had the knowledge growth, as long as we were comfortable with the leadership team, that all really mattered to us. But this generation, which is new and coming in, is really not interested in any of this. They want to see, when is the next level that they will reach, and these are the questions that I am kind of addressing when I'm interviewing people, you know. So, there is this big generation gap that I see, and it is up to us to kind of train them as professionals as they come along. And again, there is no substitute for the experience. I truly believe that what is that one thing that you bring to the table? You can call it the spark, you can call it the USP, whatever you call it, but that is something that you stand for, and that is something that you're known for in the organization, and that is something very unique to you.
Yeah, so what I hear here is, of course, no substitute for experience, and that one thing that differentiates you from other and how you build upon it is something that could help you towards the kind of clarity that you're looking at. Neha, where are your view on this? What is your view on how to achieve this clarity, and how difficult was it for you?
Yeah, so I feel there isn't a fixed formula, right, to get to success. And like I've heard from all my fellow panelists here, and I completely agree with all of you that when we started off, I don't think we had the kind of clarity that we have today about where we wanted to be in terms of success. And just as Steve Jobs said, you can only connect the dots when you look back and not when you look forward. I think the point is very clear over here for me, is that, one has to, for me, one of the very big things is that you have to completely be at it. Patience and perseverance is what gets you to success. And that is, I think there is no replacement for this. I do know, and I did hear people talk about the fact that kids of today, they want to change faster, they want faster growth, etc., etc. But if you don't have the patience and if you don't have the perseverance, it's very difficult for you to achieve the success that you're probably looking forward to. The point is that you can't know the future. You can't know what's going to lie ahead, and therefore wait it out and see where you land. I think that for me is one of the biggest things to know. The other thing is, know what you're good at. Don't try and force fit yourself in different organizations and different roles. You have to know what you're best at and just keep at it so that you land where you want to land. So those are some of the things for me.
Great. Thanks so much, Neha. We come to you now, Shweta, on the same question.
So Abhilasha, I'll just say there's this huge power in clarity, and it definitely starts with you. It has primarily allowed me to follow the purpose and the passion I had for my professional success, and I think it did not come easy, but I have absolutely got it over a period of time. You start off, there are multiple kind of lot of bottlenecks that come in, etc., where you're not even sure if you're going the right way, etc. But over a period of time, if I am, and today I think it's very easy to say, as Neha said, I think once we've actually gone ahead, we realize that it's it's so much easier to have clarity, and it's far easier so that it can help us make the right decisions right now. So I think that's my point of view.
So what I hear again and again is that it's an evolving process and it changes with your life goals. And while every stage might be different, an approach or a concerted effort is required to achieve your goal. So, and getting to your career goal and having your clarity in place, but to achieve it needs to come not only with the right skills, but also with the will and energy. And for women, unfortunately or fortunately, while men and women have the same abilities, even if they demonstrate the same kind of strengths, it can get a little difficult. And maybe, that in turn affects a woman's aspirations and confidence over a period of time. So how do you approach evaluating new opportunities that come your way? Is there a lack of confidence that stops you from embracing new opportunities because of your gender, Mona?
You're saying opportunity in terms of job opportunities or confidence levels? What is
achieving your goals? So you have this goal A. So
Okay,
yeah.
okay. So I'll tell you, I think all of us, once we get clarity, it's great going. It's the initial, finding the clarity or which takes time. But when you come to looking at opportunities and the cultural angles to this, I find that, there are biases, there are cultural biases, right, Abhilasha? That's the question, correct?
Yes.
So there are cultural biases when you are evaluating opportunity or how you take advantage. And I'll share a personal story. Many women of my age, not many, okay, some may have that. We were brought up to be good, respectful girls, not ask too many questions, not answer back, always be respectful, so on and so forth. Now we brought that into our workspace as well, right? In our initial years. Now you see, unfortunately, respect or regard for the seniors manifests itself in certain mannerisms which can be seen as appearing less confident. You speak less. You don't question too much. You are much more, you don't actually go and put a counterpoint of view. You seek other collaborative ways. So what happened is this quality, fortunately, unfortunately, in a woman is seen as a negative. And I promise you this, if you look at this quality about men who say fewer words, but when they speak, everybody listens. Those men are seen as, wow, something to really respond to. But if a woman does that, I challenge each and every one of you to question yourself. Do you know of any one woman who's like that? No, because she's perceived as less capable or underconfident. So this has hounded me, a lot in my life, and which is when I realize I have to speak up, I have to speak out. And honestly, yes, they say it's not, you shouldn't be the loudest voice on the table. Don't be the loudest voice, but please speak up, because even though you feel you have sharp clarity and you need to speak less and not too much, perceptions out there, my friends, is everything. And you need to be speaking a lot more, if not be the loudest voice.
Interesting, Mona. So,
can I just add to it? And maybe
sure,
I may be off this one, but
no, please tell me.
My 18 and a half years career in communications, and hand on my heart, I have never felt any kind of bias, any kind of discrimination. Honestly, maybe maybe I'm generalizing, but today, when I am leading projects which are outside the scope of communication, and also because I've achieved clarity much more in the last 3 to 5 years, I don't see that happening. And I absolutely, there are times when a lot of people say there are unconscious biases, there are biases, etc. Touch wood, I've not experienced that. A lot of projects respectfully got into those by the company, by the stakeholders, and it has worked well for me. So I don't know why. I'll just reserve myself by saying that how I have grown and groomed myself in companies, I have so far not experienced that at all.
Yeah, so I think, it's all a combination. And as Mona very wonderfully put it, it's a work of the cultural biases. What we have faced as individuals is what is reflected in the manner we manifest ourselves. And that in turn is taken either as a strength and weaknesses. So I think, Shweta, it's great to hear your point of view, and I'm happy to hear that you haven't, but I'm sure there's so many of us who have, and maybe it's a little lesser in the field of communications. That's an interesting point. We could take it up later. But yeah, maybe it could be that. Shelly, what's your take on this? Do you feel a lack of confidence that stops you, or that restricts you from embracing newer opportunities because of a certain gender?
Maybe not today. Well, I'll go back to experiences, I go back to that again because we've traveled a certain journey in life. But I did feel I lacked confidence to a great extent in my earlier days of my career. And just a one-line example I'll give you. I was traveling with my manager to a certain location, and he expected me to, constantly have a conversation while the car was being driven. And that was expected out of me because I was the communication manager. And he just immediately snapped and I thought you're a communication person, but you don't talk too much. I don't know what got into me at that point in time, but I ended up saying I do communication as a profession, not as a hobby. So that's my job that I do. So you don't expect me to go like chatter all the time. But that's when I realized, the expectations from women are a little different. And then I started talking to myself in my head and started deciphering a lot of things. And this I'm talking about 23 years ago. Today, I feel that there is a certain sense of confidence because A, I have seen my own journey. B, I have seen journey of my team members and I have been able to groom them or, give them some advice, etc. But I do feel over the different generations that I have worked with, the expectations are different. Like Jasmine mentioned earlier that, we are very happy with, our getting those projects and, being that getting noticed. We look for acknowledgement like anyone, and it is not gender, and this is completely gender agnostic. We all look for acknowledgement. We all look for appreciation. We all look for opportunities. This is a level playing field. Everybody looks for opportunities. We want to be visible in the space that we are in. So there may be two communication managers. One may be a male, the other may be a female. We all expect that kind of visibility. We want to be challenged. We want to be given those challenging opportunities, and we want to be able to deliver. Confidence comes through that. When you're constantly, when you're delivering, when you've been acknowledged for your work that you've been done, and also the visibility that you get in the space that you're in. And I think that is extremely important, to be able to get that level of visibility that you are doing your job. And like I said, confidence comes with time, with experience, and also about adapting yourself. You should be able to accept the experiences that you've gone through. If you're uncomfortable with the experiences, you may even, your confidence may even tank downwards. Yeah.
So, clearly confidence again is a sum total of your experiences, and it happens over a period of time. And Jasmine, you've also spoken about this, how it takes time to achieve clarity. And coming back to the same question, how have you approached opportunities and embracing new opportunities, and have you ever felt you have held yourself back because of your gender?
No, so I have never felt that, honestly, that gender is really the hindrance that comes in the way of opportunities. I believe that if you can prove yourself factually on things that you undertake, I think the management is very supportive of what you want to do. And again, you need those right kind of mentors in the organization, outside the organization, to kind of guide you through this entire journey. So that they also play a very important role, and helping you settle in and kind of seeing you through the journey. And I must say that in my organization or even outside, I have been blessed with very good mentors.
No, that's a wonderful thing. I think my entire career is the way it is today is because of the mentors that I have made earlier on in my career. I've learned everything that I have today from them, and it's a very, very important part of career and the eventual confidence that you get. Neha, what would be your take on this?
I think, to begin with, I think firstly, women need to break the shackles of this gender biasness in their own head before we go any further, because I feel we somewhere down the line, we as women block ourselves out. And I think that needs to change to begin with. The second thing is, I've been with this organization for the last 16 and a half years, and there's never been a time when I faced a gender biased sort of an issue. I've worked with several clients, over hundreds of clients. I've never faced this gender biased sort of an issue in my profession. Maybe it's prevalent in other professions. The point is, if you really speak up and you know what you're saying, you know your mind, I don't think anybody can stop you. I think we've gone way past this whole gender piece. That's my personal feeling. People understand what is needed, when it's needed, who's the right person to go to. If you have the right advice to offer, I think there is no stopping.
Great. Thanks so much. I think Mona wanted to say something.
Yeah, listening to all the myriad experiences that we have, it's an observation. It's not so much a gender bias as a personality bias, right? We all know different personalities exist. It's a scientifically well-known fact. And I know I've had to fight for, forget about women, but male team members who are very, very, softer spoken, a little bit assertive, but they are fantastic at their jobs. And I've had to fight on their behalf because they, unfortunately, because of their personality type, convey a very less confident piece, and maybe the self-glorification done by them is far less than someone who talks more and, walks the talk less. So I think maybe, and let's face it, a lot more women, their personality types may not always be alpha A++. So I think that is where I'm coming from.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, when gender bias is a reality and an unconscious bias, and we've heard this, pay, be it, equality, inequality of pay, or be it the glass ceiling. There is a glass ceiling. That's something that we all accept, but maybe it is the profession that makes it easier for us. The fact that communications as a profession is newer compared to a lot of other, professions in the space. If you look at manufacturing, if you look at pharma, it could be a lot more tougher over there. Having said that, it is heartening to hear that a panel full of very accomplished and enterprising women are talking about the non-existence of gender biases, and that as women, we should take it out of our system while approaching opportunities or, taking on new areas of responsibility. On this, this session also was the fact that mentoring and networking goes a long way in establishing a career path. Those people around you who you need to make an outreach to, investment in self. So, Mona, coming back to you again, what has helped you navigate, through your professional achievements or your career goals? How have you done it?
Mentorship is a word that you actually used, Abhilasha, and I think Jasmine, a couple of others have also, Neha has mentioned about mentors. I would add another word to it called allyship. Somewhere, and I have to call this out, women are not as good as men, colleagues, and it's a personal observation, in being allies as men are. You see, mentor is when you learn and you get the guidance from someone, but allyship is when you have someone's back. It could be a junior, it could be your boss, it could be a person in the other department whom you're working with. And somewhere that's something women have to learn, adopt, and emulate, because more often than not, I find women don't understand the finer points of allyship, and not realizing that this self-glorification they're doing, or you're not having the back of people, word gets around, right? And tomorrow, the same people whom you have to work with are going to become references, or opportunities will present. But then you've set up a reputation for yourself that's not ideal. So you need to, in addition, and they make excellent mentors. Don't get me wrong. These women make fabulous mentors. So it's mentorship and allyship, both. You have to have.
That's a lovely term. That's a lovely term. Maybe we should include it in the dictionary, allyship. I mean, it's something I think we all need to learn. How to develop it, how to nurture it. Shelley, what would you say about this?
Shelley,
I think you're on mute, Shelley.
When Mona was mentioning this point about women not being very good allies, somewhere in my head I was thinking, and also listening to the other panelists, because I just realized that there are different generations in this panel as well. Subconsciously, and then we keep talking about unconscious bias, but there is an unconscious level of insecurity somewhere, I feel, in women, because of which probably they don't end up being good allies, because there is a very unconscious insecurity that I would want to be in a certain space, and I don't want someone else to take it, because it's already very difficult to find your space in the larger scheme of things. You're anyway trying to fight a bias, you're trying to fight different situations within the organizations. I'm not too sure. Maybe that could be one of the reasons. But speaking to someone just does help. You speak to people, you engage, you find that confidant within the organization, or maybe even outside. You just might find someone. It's always a good idea to speak to someone. Whether you look at that person as an ally, or whether you look at that person as a mentor, having a conversation, expressing yourself, trying to understand what is it that is going right for me, or what is it that I can do better. If someone else can show you that picture, who has a neutral point of view, it'll just help you in taking the next steps in your career. I think that whole concept of having someone to speak to, I don't know if I want to bucket it in the space of having a mentor and an ally, but someone I can trust and someone whom I can speak to. And that is something that I would look for.
Yeah, completely agree over there, Shelly. Wonderful points. Jasmine, what has been your experience with mentorship, allyship, or just networking? How has it helped you in, your entire charting your career path?
So as I mentioned, mentorship is very important, and it could be just that one or two people, not many, whom you have the trust and the confidence in, that whatever you will share with them remains with them, and they will guide you on the path, and they are seeing you successful in the path. What I've also learned from my journey is that if you know your stuff and you can put it in the right aspect, I think the leadership is very open to kind of accepting it. And the last mantra that I would really put on this is that, I truly believe that chemistry is always very, very important than ability. If you have chemistry, ability can always be built. But if you have a lot of ability and no chemistry, then it's completely a waste. I have experienced that myself in my previous organizations. And I have seen it for myself that if you have chemistry, ability can always be built. So I truly believe that, chemistry, having the right chemistry with the person whom you're working, whom you're reporting into, is very, very important factor.
Yeah, and I think chemistry pretty much comes from the right attitude, the right intent, and the wish to be together. And I think still, there's a hiring mantra we have, hire for attitude, train for skill, because skills can be taught. So, creating that balance and understanding then becomes very, very critical. Shweta, where are you on this entire mentoring, networking? What's been your experience in your career journey?
And let me just tell you the story. In my middle management, when I was there, my confidence was shattered by just a women manager who, just because of, and again, as Shelly pointed, insecurity is the word that I put it, but could be something else for her, put me actually in a very, very difficult position within the organization. And, I think while you obviously are in troubled waters, the one thing I decided for myself is that I can never be that person ever, ever, ever for anyone. And now that I lead communication for, organizations that I work with, I have just decided I will consciously not do that. For me, what I've done is, and that's the time I truly realized that you need to have a mentor. Definitely. But very important for us to also have a right sponsor within the organization to truly support you on your journey if you know you're doing right. Right? I think it's very important if you are on the right way of achieving your results, deliverables, and there are people who are just trying to add a lot of, whatever in your journey, you should know you have right sponsors within the organization to do that. And that has been my mantra ever since that, last close to 8 years. And that's what I do. I have my mentor who sits outside my organization, but I identify the right sponsors, basis the work and communication that we actually develop over a period of time to just ensure I'm successful within the organization.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think this entire, it's like a scientific, approach that you've said, anchoring, and then you have someone inside, then you have someone outside, which is a mix of investment in yourself. Coming to that, Neha, what's your assessment of the situation?
I think what happens in a lot of situations is that we are governed by our thoughts, right? And when we see a particular situation, we react in a particular way. Without realizing that a situation may be a perceived negative situation because of our thoughts. And I face this situation very often with a lot of my colleagues when I'm trying to sort an issue out, and I realize that I wish these guys had an open conversation even before they came up, because if they did, they wouldn't have reached this point, because this is all a perception based issue, right? So I think in today's day and age, one of the big things that's needed is an open conversation. I can definitely not dispute the fact that everyone needs a mentor, and especially when you're trying to transition from the mid to the senior level, you need a mentor, whether the mentor is within the organization or outside of an organization. I have been fortunate enough to have a mentor who's literally handheld me through this transition of mid to senior level. So yeah, I think open conversation, open chat is one of the most important things. And the second thing is everyone must have a mentor within an organization or outside. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think we do not, or we do not realize the importance of a mentor or a net, or the entire concept of networking. Or as Shweta pointed out, I just love the structure that she created of a mentor outside and an anchor inside to create that ecosystem for yourself. And it's only with experience that you actually arrive at that. And this is an open question to the panel: have any of you ever invested in a career coach, or in a business coach, or in a life coach that helps you identify your needs, your requirements, where you are?
I've done it for my team members at DSP Merrill Lynch, and it's benefited them tremendously because their mentors have gone, this is 10 years back. So today their mentors are places on a global scale. And my colleagues were also very smart young women, and they deserve full credit. Yeah.
Would you undertake that for yourself, Mona? I mean, something that you do for yourself, or advise people to make that investment in themselves? You feel that you're not learning a skill, or to go to the next level, you need a certain kind of a skill. Should you make that investment?
Oh, completely. I am all for executive coaching. And I think you realize and appreciate and identify the need much later when you're in the mid to senior level role.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's different from mentorship, etc. We're talking about coaching.
Great. I guess we have 5 more minutes on the panel, and we'll do like the closure session with a question, which I'm hoping will be fun. Maybe we can begin with Shelly. What would you like to tell your younger self? What you wish you'd known 23, 25 years back?
So much, but I'll just sum it up in like a quick 2-3 points. So one, I would say, market yourself better. Talk about your achievements. We rarely spoke about our achievements. We like it to be behind the curtains. Be present where it matters. And also be vocal where it matters. You don't have to shoot yourself in the mouth. You just sit on your foot, but make sure you be vocal where it matters, and be open to unlearning, upgrading, and updating yourself. I think it's so important because we feel that we've learned, and this is a flaw which even I may be having, where I sometimes feel that itne saal ke experience hai. You should be open to unlearning, upgrading yourself, and updating yourself on a regular basis. So these are the things that I would want for myself. And luckily, my younger self is my daughter, who's 25 years old, in the same field as me. So I keep telling her these 5 points all the time. So I have someone to tell this to.
I love the term upgrading yourself. I think very, very essential. Mona, on to you now.
2 things to my younger self. Take negative or take criticism in the spirit that it's given. Please understand if someone is investing his or her energy to critique or give you feedback that you don't want to hear, they're investing a lot of their energy, their time, and they think you're worth it to give it to you and hopefully get you up to speed. Please listen. Okay, that was one. And second thing is, and this is Kaku, Kaku Nakati, CEO of Bank of America. I mean, over the years, I've heard her say, oh, come to me. If you have a problem, come to me. I will resolve it for you. And I used to go, wow, because, but truly, I understand what she means today. Don't run away from stressful situations, embrace them, work with them. And I found in a recent article, and I wrote this down, a recent article in Founding Fuel, there was an article by Dr. Sari Evans, which suggested that if you do that, if you embrace stressful situations, you actually reset your career trajectory upwards. It's so true.
Interesting, very interesting. Jasmine, what would you tell your younger self?
I would tell my younger self is believe in yourself. That's number one. Then again, have a relationship with the word no, N-O. You know, when somebody tells you a no, it is not for you as a person, it is for the task that you have undertaken. So do not take that personally, you know. Learn to accept it, learn to look beyond it. Then I truly believe that, you know, we may be excellent PR professionals, but we need to do the same for ourselves also. And this is something that I get this feedback year on year from my management also, that as much as I do an excellent job at the external front, I don't do it on the internal front. So I would like to tell my younger self that also, that that's also very important. You know, it's not about bragging or anything of that sort, but it's like, you know, putting that message across that yes, this is what I bring to the table.
Turi, I say brag a little bit. Do it.
And the last one that I would like to say is that be open to learning, be open to technology, learning new technology, learning a new skill. That will always value add. That's it.
Yeah. In fact, there's a book on the power of saying no. So very well said, Jasmine. Neha?
For me, a couple of things. I think stop being so critical and so harsh on yourself. That's the first thing. I think be curious as you can be. Challenge the status quo always. Don't let the fire in your belly die just because there's somebody who's trying to show you down in any way possible. And last but not the least, love yourself like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah. In fact, be curious is something that we should be taught, you know, since children. I think as we grow up, we just lose curiosity. So that's wonderful. Shweta.
Abhilasha, you just stole my word. You know, one of the things that I told myself that I will surely do was upgrade myself. And after the stressful experience that I had, I made sure I become a culture coach, a values and culture coach, international certified. That was one thing I did it for my well-being. So a real, true self at that point in time is for me to focus on and prioritize my well-being without feeling guilty. So I think that's just one thing that I have to say for everyone, actually.
Brilliant. And, you know, this is also an example of how you have invested in self, being, you know, a certified values and cultural coach. Brilliant. And I think that's what means, you know, that's what the ethos of this panel is: clarity, confidence in our career and charting a way forward. So brilliant, Shweta. And well, I would tell my younger self to read Lean In again and again. I read it at 30. I wish I had read it years back. And I think it should be a part of curriculum for girls in college. I think it's an exemplary book. Mona, you saying something? Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks so much. I think we're running out of time now. Thanks for a fantastic panel and a very, very scintillating discussion. I hope people can take away, you know, how they can arrive at their clarity and build career with confidence. Thank you so much, everyone. Over to you, Shreya.
Thank you so much, Abhilasha. What a panel that was. I think so many reflections and so much to sort of take you back in time, take you forward into the future. Here's the piece for this panel. Stuck, the needle's not moving, managing the right balance, focus and articulation with the end goal in sight. Make your voice heard, demand respect and regard. Create authentic narratives, respect and trust, passion and compassion, balance for ourselves, truth and magic. In short and long-term goals, agile and monitor roles, invaluable growth of chasing opportunities and aspirations and embracing roadblocks. Success never the goal, space was the goal then. Moving forward with experience and charting the path ahead without substitutes for experience. Who are you and what do you bring to the table? No fixed formulas for success and power and clarity, following purpose, evolving as you grow and achieve. Embracing new opportunities and how perceptions are everything, or maybe they aren't. Confidence through delivering and heartening stories of no bias encountered. Allyship, developing and nurturing, building the right chemistry and how the ability forms. The power of open conversations, of mentors and sponsors, and rising beyond perception. Be present, be vocal and grow, upgrade, take feedback in the right spirit, believe in the self, and have a relationship with the word no. Stop being critical and harsh on yourself. Be curious, but don't let the fire die out. Invest in yourself and simply just lean in. There you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Thanks.
you, everybody, for that wonderful, wonderful panel. Thank you, Abhilasha, for moderating it so well.
Thank you, Shreya.
Thank you. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Careers, clarity, and confidence charting the way forward. Our final panel today, as a lead on from that one, is on marketing and communications.
Okay, we seem to have lost Shreya there. So I'm just going to take this on and just to introduce our next panel, which is going to speak about marketing and communications opportunities, redefine and reinvent for business. Moderating this panel today is Arpana Ahuja, and the panelists for this one are Lavang Khare, Neha Singhvi, Kavita Lakhani, and Rekha Rao. So welcome everyone to this, and Arpana, it's over to you now for this.
Thank you so much, Anubhuti, and a very good afternoon to everyone. It's been a wonderful day, the Conclave. I think it's very, very nice and thought-provoking, insightful discussions so far, talking about the many challenges that each one of us face, not necessarily as women, but of course with the focus on us being as women professionals. Changing tracks a little bit, I'm here today. It's a real pleasure to moderate this panel with a set of very dynamic agency leaders with us. Focusing on how are we looking to redefine and reinvent for business growth and success. Every major disruption has some winners and losers, and it accelerates pre-existing trends into a tsunami of change. COVID-19 has been no exception. This disruption to our lives, including businesses, have forced us to change the way we behave, collaborate, communicate. It has profoundly changed the business landscape for us. In this session, we are going to explore how has PR been redefined for marketing and brand teams over the past year, and what opportunities have opened for the industry. So diving straight in, let me begin with a question for Kavita, Lavang, and Neha. Do you think brands and businesses have become more willing to take risks as a result of the COVID pandemic?
Thanks for the lovely question, Arpana. If Lavang and the others are kind of okay, I'd love to take this question first. Yeah,
please go ahead. Thanks, Kavita, for jumping in.
Thank you, Arpana. I'd like to say a very happy Women's Day to everybody who is on this panel, as well as watching us in the audience. This has been a fascinating day. I mean, we've learned so much, and this is the last session, so we're going to try and keep it engaging. I'd just like to say, in response to your question, Arpana, I think undoubtedly the last year has been one of huge risk-taking appetite, and we've seen lots of risks being taken by companies, brands, organizations. And I think, it has also been a year of innovation, huge innovation. And in fact, that was one of the best things that emerged out of COVID, Innovation is all about, a risk-taking ability. It's all about having a challenger mindset. It's all about experimentation, in my view. And I'd just like to say we've seen it happening like never before in the last year. We should all be very, very fortunate that we've kind of lived through these times. In my view. And, the kind of risks that we've seen have been, I think, in the area of product development, the distribution patterns or the distribution formats have changed for companies. Let me try and give you a few examples to actually, bring it to life, So, for example, the pharma industry, it has gone through massive, massive changes, The development time of a vaccine, for example, was 10 years. But I think in the last year, we've seen that change and get kind of reduced to just 1 year. And I would say, I would term it as hyper innovation. I would also term it as experimentation with product development, with therapy development, with clinical trials, while at the same time, accuracy, efficacy, or patient safety has not been compromised. So I would tend to think that, this would not have happened if COVID did not happen to us. So it's a wonderful example of the risk-taking ability of the industry as a whole. Yeah. If you come closer to B2C companies, for example, before COVID, a lot of them were thinking of going digital or going the e-commerce way. And however, they were very heavily leveraged on the, the retail distribution model. But I think COVID kind of pushed things, they really, overnight, I think retail channels were closed. Customers, started kind of moving into e-commerce in a big, big way. And I don't think that left an opportunity for a little bit of doubt or a little bit of hesitation or apprehension. Companies were forced to go the phygital way, so they had to look at the retail model, which was existing, but had to go into e-commerce in a big, big way. And in a sense, it was a forced risk for them. They had to experiment. And I would just like to cite one third example, which all of us, without exception, across the globe have experienced, which is the work from home model. For decades and decades, we were all kind of in the work from office mode. Organizations couldn't really think about work from home, or a few organizations thought about it. But the last year has been all about that, And I would say the risk the organizations ran was, productivity loss, or maybe data security, all of those, or a lack of culture, a culture dissipation loss. But, I think all the organizations, without exception, or most organizations, have actually crossed that hurdle. And I think it's been a good thing. The last year has been a huge year of risk-taking. I would say the agility quotient of most organizations has actually been tested. And I think most of them have emerged as winners. So it's a good thing. It has been a good year.
Thanks, Kavita. Maybe Lavan, would you like to add your...
Thanks, Kavita. I think a lot of it has been said by you already, but a couple of things. The pandemic has brought about such a huge change in consumer behavior and sentiment, and the brands have had to evolve on a real-time basis. I would say it's still a mixed response from a risk aspect. A lot of brands have decided to go ahead and take the risk, but there are two sides to a coin at the end of the day, and that's how it works with us in the communication world too. While some brands have become very, very apprehensive, others have evolved and taken that risk, and they've tread upon uncertain territories, which they would have never done pre-2020. Of course, there are brands which have caused disruptions all through the years. But today, there's an appetite for change, and that's a great starter from a risk perspective. There are a few things I think the brands are definitely doing, and Kavita gave us some nice, interesting examples, and I will just also mention a couple of them. Brands have become very transparent and empathetic today. If you remember a year ago, and I think it's going to be exactly a year since most of us have been working from home, the brand voice today has many, many delicate nuances when we look at it. A brand cannot be commercially exploitative in today's world. It could have done so maybe a couple of years ago, and the last 1 year completely changed that sort of thinking. In the current situation, in this year, we still don't have all answers, and we should be able to acknowledge that as communications professionals and also from a brand perspective. So when you look at it, media has been used in a very, very agile manner today. And digital, of course, has gone on the forefront, more so than anybody had ever thought about it. There is access to remote production, there's access to creative capacity. And as the crisis evolved, the brands just learned to work from wherever they were. I want to take two simple examples of two shoe companies. When you look at Nike, what did they say? The first message was play inside, play for the world. They just adapted in spite of the fact that they were a shoe brand. And Bata, they went ahead and did a campaign on Park Your Shoes. They said the shoes will take you wherever you want to be, and emphasized on the fact that until you can go out, park your shoes. So when you look at it, yes, there are certain brands which went ahead and took that brand sort of a, if I may say, disruptive behavior. Thirdly, there has to be goodness. And when you take risks, the goodness needs to be associated with the brand in every manner possible. The simplest thing that people did was sanitizers and masks, right? But even if you look at adult beverage brands like a Diageo, or you look at AB InBev, they repurposed all their alcohol manufacturing capabilities to make sanitizers and to do short-term supplies. So it was risk at the end of the day. For some, it's paid off really well. But the fact is, it's also adaptability and risk at the core. So it's all about feel good, It's all about alleviating that anxiety and promoting the positive messaging in a right manner. And also, more importantly, I think from a risk perspective, it's about tracking and analyzing trends and mapping scenarios, because I started with the fact that the consumer sentiment and behavior changed altogether in last 1 year. All of us who are on this panel, and I've been listening to the earlier couple of panels as well, all of us change as individuals, right? Can we ever imagine that we would have stayed at home for a year and worked so efficiently? It's a risk that our own employers took as well. And each one of us works for a brand, which is definitely a brand which stands for certain values and principles. Last, and I won't take another moment, Arpana, I think it's most important to be adapt to this change and new ways of working. That's also a risk. So for me, it's still a 50-50. Brands have taken a risk. They've adapted to it. Some of them have been successful. And I think this year has made us learn and reimagine ourselves totally.
Thanks, Lavang. In fact, so Neha, what I'd love to know from you is, I think we're talking about taking risks, we're talking about changes, but what I'd really like a point of view would be on, do we really see companies are being more risk averse, right? Because in terms of the whole narrative of kind of all the do's and don'ts, do we really see that change there?
Yeah. So Arpana, actually, you're saying exactly what I had in my mind. The fact that, I agree with, both Kavita and Lavang and the points that they made. But I think what happened last year was the biggest risk that any company or any business could have foreseen in their, in their number of years that they've been around. And what happened is brands have been agile. They were nimble. They adapted to the changing dynamics. But I feel that if you think about taking the risk appetite, has it increased? I would rather say no, because there is a greater appetite for trying out new things, right? There is innovation, and innovation has come in all forms, right? The shift to digital, from digital being a facilitator to being an accelerator, it almost happened overnight. And there were a lot of investments made very quickly. But does that mean that tomorrow the brands are now sort of looking at taking more, ways, or, sort of having a larger risk appetite to go on for uncharted territories? Maybe no. I think what has happened is, the focus has moved from experience to data. The focus is so much on data today, which is helping them chart out this innovation or these newer territories. And, just to give you an example, okay, a client like Uniqlo. The brand's been around, almost completed a year last year, is largely known for its heat tech products, airism products, which are very, very well accepted during the winters, right? Now, they're not in e-commerce. E-commerce wasn't launched then, but they knew this is the right time. So they experimented, right? They experimented with an online portal to ensure home delivery across 17,000 PIN codes in the country. Now, that's because they wanted to reach out to the customers. So yes, brands did go all out, went digital in every way possible, because there was a larger need to meet the business requirements. Or if, say, you look at an ITC Savlon, they've been in the hand washing and the sanitizer business for a long time. But they realized there is market opportunity. Who would have imagined a brand like ITC Savlon would come up with 11 SKUs in a matter of 6 months, where you've seen the innovation happening once in a year in the sector. And similarly, there were so many other brands that did that. So I feel that, the shift really for businesses was more, they adapted fast. That was the need of the hour. Risk appetite, maybe more I'm skewed towards saying no. But yes, I think it's for each their own. And, tomorrow you may see a few businesses actually behaving differently. And that probably time would tell.
So I think what I'm gathering here is we're looking at, of course, need necessitating us between a sink or a swim. So you kind of swim with the flow. But I think picking up on something that Lavang also said. So therefore, are we looking at that businesses, yes, are adapting for change, but is it change or is it transformation? Because see, change is temporary, right? You can go back to doing what you were doing, but transformation is truly, reinventing and then not, paving the way forward and not going back. So Lavang, what would you say? Is there an adaptation for change, or is it transformation that we are looking at today?
So, I think what you said is so right. It is an adaptation for change. It's not a true transformation. And that's why I said it's a 50-50 situation, Alpana. Because brands are thinking all the time, and they're operating and trying to look at new ways during these uncertain and unprecedented circumstances at the end of the day. We will learn together, right? There'll be confidence and there'll be humility at the same time. So it is adapting to change. If it's one thing for companies to be able to recognize how they need to redefine or reinvent the way they are in terms of brands, but it's for the businesses to be able to succeed because it is an age of disruption at the end of the day. And transformation begins with adaptation. So I don't think you can isolate the two from each other. It's going to be a gradual adaptation and change. And transformation that is sudden will anyways not last very long, right? So it has to be a gradual adaptation process where we are testing waters and we respond to change, which shapes the course of transformation at the end of the day. And the speed at which we adapt and the way we do it will determine that course. And that will vary one organization from the other as we move ahead. That's my view on it, Abhinav.
Thanks, Neha. Anything, since you also touched upon this a little bit earlier, good to get a quick view on this.
I think, the base of this can really be found from the fact that, we are human beings at the end of the day, right? We are very hopeful that things will go back to where they were. So while, yes, businesses have adapted, but at the end, and they have been innovating constantly. I think the sort of innovation we've seen in the last year, one won't have imagined. Like, there are business models that have come up, right? We were talking about digital. Suddenly what happened is people realized reaching out to tier 3-4 cities is just so much far more simpler than would have ever imagined earlier, because suddenly digital consumption went up and how there, right? So yes, does that mean that brands have changed the way they market and they communicate themselves? Yes, absolutely yes. We have models like ShareChat and Moj, platforms like them that came up. They've been built to leverage language, right? You have seen beauty brands coming up with complete new lines on wellness products based on conscious living, responsible sourcing. Yes, it could be, if tomorrow this is something which works well, this could be a transformation for business for them. But, I still feel it's adaptation. It's a lot of innovation. And we've seen some really good examples coming out of it, something from all of us to learn from.
So it's interesting what you said, Neha, about in terms of, even consumers, right? Like if you're looking at the digital landscape, last year we had, senior citizens, a number of senior citizens being on platforms that we wouldn't have ever imagined them to be. But my question here is also, therefore, are they going to continue to be on those platforms going forward, or was it a temporary thing? Kavita, I'd love to have a view from you on this.
I was just absolutely waiting for this question. So I have a contrarian view to, to Lavang and Neha's point. I do not think for a minute that this is just adapting to change. I truly believe that businesses have transformed. A good number, a majority of businesses have transformed. And I think COVID has actually pushed companies, over the technology tipping point. And it's transformed businesses because of the technology that's now being used very, very frequently by all of us, including the senior citizens that you talked about, Arpana. I was just reading this very interesting survey that McKinsey has done recently. And it was a survey of, that was conducted of senior executives worldwide in Asia Pacific, in the European countries, as well as in the US. And I think there was a unanimous opinion that, the digitization of, if you were to say, the supply chain interactions or the customer interactions has been accelerated by 3 to 4 times, definitely 3 to 4 years. And I would say also, when you are delivering products or services, the digitization of that has been accelerated 10 plus years, and these changes are big. In 1 year, to be able to leapfrog to that extent is massive. And I don't think there's going to be any going back for sure. So I truly believe that this has been one of the most transformative years for businesses. This is going to change the way economies function, the way organizations function. This is not small band-aid kind of change or adapting or any of that. Of course, I mean, you've started on that process, but this is going to change the way we do things as we go forward. Nobody is going back to the old ways, including our senior citizens.
Yeah, thanks, Kavita. Indeed, even I think the general, what I'm hearing from everybody here is that yes, adaptation, change is there, but what we are very sure of, whether it is actual true transformation or kind of on a journey to transformation, but there is certainly no going back. We are truly on a trajectory for growth. And talking about change, I think brings me to another thing. Change is that, are we seeing a change, for all of you in the agency business, are we seeing a change in the budgets shifting for PR? I think if last year, one thing that really stood out was underlining the value for PR, right? Do you really feel in an integrated, media and marketing communications world that we've truly evolved into, do you feel that PR is in the driving seat and therefore the budgets are shifting to PR? Is that something that you're seeing? Rekha, I would love to hear from you on this. Rekha, you're on mute.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you, Arpana, for the question. So definitely there is a lot more prominence to PR in terms of, how marketers are probably looking at it. And I think somewhere around the way, I don't think it needed a pandemic to make that shift happen, because that shift had actually started happening over the last 3 to 4 years. But the pandemic, of course, brought it all to life. And for the brands who did not know the value of PR or were not using it effectively, maybe the last year just forced them to start looking at PR as a very, very reliable alternative to advertising that most brands usually tend to invest in, and drove the attention to how PR can still drive conversations and keep the brands in the right context in the consumer's mind. So that definitely has happened last year. But talking about whether PR is in the driving seat, I think today, if you look at communications, it's more about the creativity being agnostic. I personally have interacted with brands, and I've been very fortunate to also work with clients who do not look at PR as just, maybe what it was 5 years or 10 years back, where you're all about free coverage and free volumes of free coming. You're not the free agency anymore. And I've been very fortunate to work with some of the best companies in India who look at PR as being, agencies that can come up independently with creative concepts, who can drive concepts, and who can actually drive communication programs independent of advertising. So that is where I guess there is a lot of prominence in terms of what we can do as an industry. However, I think what is important for us to realize is that today, because there is, advertising, of course, is coming back, and everybody's looking at advertising on digital platforms. But a huge amount of impetus is also with influencer marketing, and a huge amount of focus is also on using nano influencers and macro influencers to push brands and to communicate the reliable, the credible communications around brands, and which is where I guess the pie is something which is a very cluttered market. Almost every other agency comes and says, whether it's digital, whether it's media buying, whether it's advertising, whether it's PR, all of them come and talk about, how influencer marketing is something that they all do. But I believe, and not because I'm from this industry, but I truly believe that influencer marketing as a strategy is something which is owned and driven best when it is owned by PR agencies, because one, it's about content, and it is about credible content. And if the agencies which know best how to use content in a reliable, credible, and subtle way in order to, truly bring to effect the subliminal marketing part, then I think it is no other than PR that actually does that well. And a lot of brands, I'm very happy to say, are parking the influencer budgets and influencer campaign monies with the PR agencies and not with their digital agencies. So that's I think, a great move forward.
If I can do one quick follow-up question on that. You said most clients are doing that, but in cases where clients are not, how do you win the battle there, and how do you change the needle there?
I think, the biggest thing is somewhere, if they're not doing it, then they're still dated in terms of how they look at communications. In their mind, the minute a PR agency comes and says that they're able to do this, the first question is, but why would you do it? I have my advertising or my digital agency already doing it. So what are you going to bring to the floor? So for me, there it's about educating the client and telling them the difference of, when a PR agency does it, why does it work even more effectively than when probably a media buying agency goes and buys influencers and just pushes a campaign out, which is so different from how credibly PR agencies, manage content. Fortunately, I haven't had to face many of those clients, so I'm lucky there. But I know that it's a battle to get the mindset shift, because the minute you say PR, they still think it's free. Somewhere in their mind, PR is equal to free, irrespective of whether you're doing influencer or you're doing, editorial for them.
Thanks, Rekha. Neha, coming to you, given that PR Pandit is known to do so many integrated marketing communications, where do you think has the needle moved in context of, say, last year, especially, right? In terms of how have we changed the conversations there, and how have we completely, totally taken the driving seat?
Sure. So there has been a shift. Right? PR has been the building block for brand reputation, right? But the pandemic did see entire campaigns, launches that were driven by PR alone, right? So I think for me, the victory wasn't whether we get to do one portion or the other, right? And I absolutely understand when you talk about influencer marketing, PR Pandit has been one of the first adopters of influencer marketing in the country, if I may say, when it comes to really doing large scale influencer engagements. But the fact that, today public opinion is swaying decisions and advocacy has been so critical. It has never been so important than it is today, right? We've seen so many examples in the last year where we saw the entire PR campaign was driven by, the entire marketing campaigns were driven by PR agencies. And this has not just helped in creating visibility for a brand or a product, but it has actually helped in achieving a larger business objective. If I may give you an example, say a brand like Perfetti, they have Center Fresh mints, right? The PR campaign came up with the whole idea of keeping mints relevant through the pandemic, where there was a full repositioning and repurposing around the product, where campaigns like Stay Fresh and Stay Happy behind the mask, where you had freshness kits being sent to frontline workers, whether it's hospitals, the traffic, nurse, doctors, all of them, and it gave a complete new consumption push for mints. Right now, this is a PR-led campaign. Now, later on, it was adapted. Of course, there was digital marketing around it. Of course, there was money spent on digital to push and get more amplification. But I think the win is that because the fact PR works so closely when it comes to brand reputation and the understanding the finer nuances of what goes into messaging and how you communicate on a brand, gave that extra push. We've seen how an upcoming grooming company, and without naming them, who have large investments from FMCG giants, saw distributor deals being closed when they were written off favorably in financial publications. So I think, yes, there's been a shift, and the shift really, if I could, bring an analogy here, would be from filling in the front passenger car seat to now being the co-driver and navigator of the rally car. This has been the shift. And, I just feel, crisis often triggers a lot of significant changes, and some of them are permanent. So I'm hoping that this shift and this validation is going to be permanent in nature as we move ahead.
Thanks, Neha. Kavita, I'd love to know, on this same theme, when we are looking at a mix of the paid, owned, and earned, right? But the expectation from PR agencies is always about it has to be earned. You guys, influencer marketing, you're asking us for money. I thought you guys were going to give us the earned piece. How do you then again navigate that landscape to show the value?
So, my view on this, Arpana, is one is that the number of those kind of requests are decreasing. And I think the important bit is for brands, who who need to be educated in a sense to understand what is the central role of public relations. And I would think, that is something that has happened very effectively over the last couple of years, and more so during this crisis. We all know as human beings, in times of crisis, like what Neha was saying, people quickly turn to a brand or a product that they trust, that they've heard of. And I think that's been engaging with them, very, very actively in various means. And I would say the central role of PR is to ensure a good reputation is built. And the mechanics of that, or the logistics, whether you're doing it through, editorial media, you're doing through influencer engagement, or however, I don't think that's really important to clients. And I don't even think they actually think about PR any longer as only on media. I think they've transcended that mindset already. I think what has happened in the last year, certainly, is that PR has taken on more of a central role in integrated communications. It's more of an anchor discipline, if I were to say so. And it has earned an equal, I would say, an equal space on the table when you're thinking of campaigns. I liked what Rekha said earlier on, She said very interestingly that creativity is discipline agnostic. And I think whichever discipline, whether it's PR, whether it's the advertising creative teams, or whether it's the digital teams today, whoever displays creativity and brings a solution to the table, that's the discipline that is in the driver's seat. It's not necessarily PR, or it's not necessarily the advertising guys. But the sea change is that PR didn't have a voice at the table earlier, and it does now. And that's a good shift to have.
Absolutely. And I think a big pat on the back to everybody in this industry for making it, that change and earning. I use the word earn, right? It's not only about demanding, but I think truly earning a seat on the table. But, picking up on, you spoke about trust, and that brings me to, another point on how brands show up is, essential in building the reputation, right? In terms of, and purpose is being there, always kind of been there, but I think the authentic presence that we bring into the communication mix is what makes a difference. And I think last year, that was another thing that we saw, how brands showed up, made that little difference for us. Rekha, this is a question for you. What would you think has changed for brands to be seen as trustworthy? Is there now, do you see a higher integration of marketing communication with ESG and CSR? Because with the whole environmental, social, and corporate governance, norms coming much more to the forefront, where do you think the needle has shifted?
So very interestingly, just before the pandemic hit us, sometime at the end of 2019, we at Zeno had conducted a survey called as the Zeno Strength of Purpose Survey, and I'm talking specifically with regards to the data that we collected from India. So about 1,000+ respondents were asked, questions around, what purpose means to them, and our main intent was to figure out whether purpose was just about nomenclature, which was a feel-good thing for organizations, or was it really something which also motivated consumers to move towards picking brands, choosing brands, buying brands, or staying with brands? And I think that is what was a core intent of the survey. And what came out was really interesting, that 98% of the people actually said that they truly believe that they will support companies which actually have genuine purpose, and they want to kind of be associated with companies or brands that genuinely have purpose as part of their integrated mandate. And I think the other thing which they said, which was very interesting from a marketing perspective, was that they were willing to buy a brand 4 times more if it was seen as having a genuine purpose, and they were willing to back a brand 5 times more if it was in crisis, or if it was going through a bad patch. And I think that data actually tells us that the generational shift in terms of how brands and products are looked at, which is not just for functionality, but also for something beyond functionality, is what is a great way forward in terms of why brands and companies and corporates should look at purpose as a genuine investment and as a behavior, and not just as something that they would want to kind of talk of for generating some very feel good coverage for themselves. So I think that's the big thing. And the other thing also is that when we look at the consumers and we look at the two generations, so one was us who defied everything and said that, no, we want our world to be different from the deprived world of our parents. Then came our children who said that, okay, now I need to live by the norms of my parents. At the same time, I also now want to kind of establish my individuality. And that was where the millennial conflict of behavior came in. And then now we have the next gen, the Gen Zs, who are much more definite about what they want, who are much more willing to take matters in their own hand, and they're not afraid to defy. They're not afraid to stand up for what they believe in. And I think this big thing of the big shift of the Gen Zers who are willing to stand up and against their parents' wishes or against their social, followed social norm, are willing to stand up for what they believe in, is a big shift in terms of how purpose is looked at. And some of the recent events that have happened in the in our country actually talk about how the voice of the youth, and especially the youngsters, and I'm talking about the 16-year-olds, the 17-year-olds, the 19-year-olds who are willing to stand up and talk for what they believe in. So purpose is definitely a behavior which we need to imbibe, and genuinely need to imbibe it as an organization, and not just an activity that corporates and brands have to do, or not just a marketing initiative that they run year after year. They need to believe in it and they need to stick with it. And unfortunately, again, I've had the good fortune of working with some of the best brands, both at Unilever and P&G, who have genuinely invested in purpose much before this entire conversation has actually come in place. And I think those brands, it's being paid off now, because that investment was made almost a decade back. It was not made today when a conversation is happening. So whether we talk about the Unilever's sustainability, and mapping themselves to the sustainable development goals, or we talk about P&G's socially relevant campaigns, which have actually shifted a mindset in terms of how people actually think about certain social issues, are all genuine investments that brands have been making in terms of what purpose looks like. And the last point, even recently, Women's Day just went by yesterday, and we could see a lot of brands talking about women. But again, how many brands were there in it only because it was Women's Day? And how many brands actually live in it because it is something that they abide by or believe in for the rest of the year? So of course, our some of the brands that we handle, like Levi's, which has the I Shape My World campaign, or Nike, which Lawang spoke about, these are brands that have stood with purpose as a behavior and not just as something that they do on Women's Day as an activity. So I guess that is the definite change I would see, and I would definitely urge for most of the clients that we work with, we urge them to think about purpose as a behavior and not just as an activity.
So very well said, Rekha. I think what we're looking at is basically how do we integrate our CSR, our ESG into the brand communications in an organic way and not in a promotional way, right? So that it is truly authentic when we show up in front of our consumers. Kavita, I would love a point of view here from you, if you have an example perhaps to share with us.
I just want to say that I completely agree with Rekha. And I just like to layer one point, over and above what she said. Today, I'm also going to elaborate on what ESG stands for, because I understand that we have a young audience that's watching us. So for all those who don't know what it means, it stands for environmental, social, and governance criteria. And I would say today, 80% of global investments take place on the basis of ESG metrics. So I can't stress enough on the importance of integrating ESG messaging in your in the communication that we do, because it's important to build trust and stakeholder confidence. And I'm not talking about shareholder confidence or customer confidence. I'm talking about all stakeholders. So I think it's very important. I would also like to say that a minimum 60% of our communication messaging must be centered and focused around ESG messaging. It should be built in very seamlessly. And I think a number of companies are doing a great job. I think Rekha mentioned a few, Lavang has mentioned a few, but I'd like to talk about Godrej, Dabur, P&G, HUL, of course, which Rekha mentioned, Asian Paints. They're doing a stellar job of actually weaving ESG messaging, to tell their brand story, to talk about their products and talk about their approach towards, creating the products that they actually sell in the market today. So incredibly important point. It's not only about, and CSR is a subset of ESG. So I would think it's important to kind of work around that.
Absolutely. No, thank you. Very, very well said. Changing gears quickly and mindful of time, we have only 3 minutes and I'd love to take a few questions that I can see in the chat box as well. But the last question, I think, since we're talking about transformation, we've kind of spoken about what last year has shown, but taking a little bit more futuristic, if you may, I think last year also brought out how in absence of, say, certain, lack of resources, some marketing functions really took the help of AI and how it enabled businesses. So are we, we know that so far AI has had not the most significant role in, say, marketing communications. When do you think AI will have a significant role and which industries are going to lead that? Neha, if I can start with you and, go down to Rekha and Lavang with two very quick points here so that then we can move to the questions.
Sure. So we've already witnessed firms investing into data and analytics to drive messaging, especially headlines which are based on the predicted sentiments. I think by the very fact that the early adaptation of AI in business was led by healthcare, financial services, education, retail, and of course the tech startups, these sectors are also, what we've seen is is using AI a lot more when it comes to using it for communications and picking out the right narrative and engaging with audiences. I also feel that, just in the days to come, we'll witness a much stronger integration of data intelligence with human intelligence. And that's really going to help us in coming up with more effective narration for brands, products as we move forward.
Yeah. Rekha, which industry do you think is really going to lead this?
I think any industry, any organization or company or brand that has an intense consumer facing will have to, or already does depend on AI in terms of, figuring out the kind of, and especially when you relate it back to communications, right? So I mean, a very interesting thing, like, and I'm mentioning that because I'm working on that campaign right now. I'm working on the client right now. The Tata Sampann campaign. It's very interesting to know that the packaging of Tata Sampann was all driven by AI. It was driven by a research that was done where, instead of doing focus group testing of the packaging, they had used, the neuro programming, and they had basically gauged the responses of people of what they reacted to on the packaging, the colors or the food or whatever, and integrated that back into how the packaging was created. Now, if that is not using it for marketing, then what is? And just another client of ours, Spotify, a lot of the work that we do on Spotify is data-based. A lot of, to understand what kind of campaigns to run, or, the kind of trends that we are predicting, in terms of music, or even, playlists which are compiled on Spotify and given from individual to individual, depending upon their usage and their pattern. Everything is, again, AI. So at the end of the day, I guess, wherever there is data and behavior coming together, AI will play a very, very, very important role. And to me, that would be anything which is consumer interface, which has millions of people dictating how, they function or interface with the brand. I think AI is going to dominate those industries.
No, thank you so much. I'm sorry, I think being mindful of time and
Arpana, can I just add one point? Because we are talking AI and we are the communications people. I think AI is playing a very important role for us in PR. At the end of the day, Meltwater is the perfect example that most people are using. So when you said which sector, and I know if you're mindful of time, there may be healthcare, manufacturing, mobile gaming, etc. But for us, AI is sure shot. It's not about tech alone. It's about the PR world and the communication. And Mel Potter is the perfect example.
So I think a very clear takeaway, future is already here. It's for us to make. And if I may just quickly sum up, I think even the session before we were talking about changes and adaptation. I think success, if we were to take away from here, success is all about evolution, right? And challenges are about opportunities to invent and reinvent. And just like brands and products, I think even equally for all of us, it is about being updated and constantly changing and reinventing. And then on that note, thank you so much to everybody tuned in. Thank you, Reputation Today, and the wonderful volunteers who put this together. It's been a pleasure. Over to you, Shreya.
Thank you so much. I think
I'm waiting to hear the poem.
Yes, the poems here. What a stellar panel once again. And I think this one, sort of brought all of those conversations into realistic narratives of what we can do really as an industry to look forward and infusing everything that we spoke about into this. So here's the poem. Innovation, challenger mindsets and risk-taking and leapfrogging technology, testing the status quo, changes and evolution of transparency and empathetic voices, nuance sharing and absorbed shifts. Change of work and the dynamic, agility and appetite for new things. Digital, from being a facilitator to an accelerator, changing the scenario for good. Swimming with the flow, is it change or is it transformation? There's a lot more prominence to communication. It's not the pandemic that triggered the shift. Advertising and marketing impetus, influencer programs, all about creativity and content. Changes in the status quo and shift. How do you navigate the landscape to show the value? Brands were getting educated to relook at public relations, the mechanics of sound reputation, channels and mediums irrespective, transcending mindsets, centrally integrated communications with equal spaces at the table, creativity that's discipline agnostic and bringing solutions to the fore, earning that seat with trust and purpose, shifting to newer narratives, infusing tech and AI. The future is really here. It's for us to make it what we want it to be. The success is in evolution, embracing change and reinvention. So there you go. That was the piece for this panel. Thank you so much, panelists. It was a pleasure to have and listen to all of you here. And that brings us to the end of the panels for the day. And I'm going to now bring Anubhuti in for the vote of thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Shreya. And absolutely, what an absolutely fabulous conclave this has been. The plethora of ideas, the diversity of ideas, and of course, your poems left us all wanting more. All of this would not have been possible without the support of our partners, the speakers, and of course, all the attendees. I would like to thank our associate partners, ATDB Communication, and the co-founders Abhilasha Padi and Kiran Ray Chaudhary, Scroll Mantra, founded by Neha Bajaj, and Commune, founded and led by Ruby Sinha, for their wholehearted support. Thank you to our supporting partners, PRCAI, Wiki, the Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, OneSource, IPRF, the School of Communication and Reputation SCORE, PR Club, and Reputation Today. A heartfelt gratitude to all our panelists and moderators today for taking the time out and sharing their invaluable insights with us. And last but certainly not the least, a big thank you to all our attendees who have joined us today on Zoom and also on the Reputation Today YouTube channel. I now welcome all of you for a quick catch-up session. We are gradually promoting all of you to the status of a panelist so we can make this more interactive and engaging. Just please allow us a few minutes before all of you are here as panelists. And I can see most of you are already here. That's great. Welcome, everyone, to the India Impact Communication Conclave.